Phones, cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join me, Spumelele Zondi, on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Yeah, good morning, guys. It's nice to be back with the team. I know I was missing yesterday, Elvis, but it wasn't because of Orlando Pirates' heavy defeat over the weekend.
Well, missing in action, you know, you could be rewarded for at least staying at home and maybe sleep it off after the Orlando Pirates loss.
From where I stood, it looked like you're running away from Monday morning.
Guys, I took a beating on social media. I wish it would stop now, but, you know, it is what it is.
But we got more important issues to talk about.
Yeah, we do. Something that hits the pocket and something that's very important for South Africa as a nation going forward, because we're talking about data, the effect that data has on economic growth, and the fact that data is so expensive in South Africa, Elvis.
And that's why we're asking the question, do we need an inquiry into the price of data in South Africa? That's the question. So far, 173 votes in, Kendall.
And a whopping 94% say yes, we do need an inquiry into the price of data in South Africa.
That's the most overwhelming yes vote we've ever had on the Newsroom show. 94% of you are saying, yes, we need a judicial inquiry into the price of data. And I think that kind of says it all. What are people tweeting us?
Well, only 6%, by the way, is saying, no, we don't need that inquiry. And that could relate to the networks that we have in the country. And of course, he says, yes, we do need data are killing us. We all know nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do without the internet.
That's the world we live in today. I agree.
And Freddie Whitehorn says it's simple, not that we'll have it, but yes.
Yeah, Freddie. This is the best one so far. Siafana, great tweet today, my friend. He says, the Department of Data is killing us. Data must fall. He's so right. Yes, it feels as if this thing has got a law, become a law unto itself a little bit.
Got its own department.
Yeah, the Department of Data is killing us, and we need to rise up against this department, guys. But we're also asking, Elvis, is that it's one thing to complain. But it's another thing to stand up and take part in what happened last week, and we didn't.
And don't participate in slacktivism. But the point is, because there was this social media blackout, it was called last week, it failed spectacularly.
It did.
At one point, it was trending on Twitter. I remember you pointing it out as well. So, yes, it speaks a lot to where we are as a nation. I think it's relevant that you're asking this.
Yeah, it was embarrassing that a social media blackout was trending on Twitter. Nazim Unati, he tweets us, he says, I don't think it failed. We will continue with it. It's not a one-day thing. And that's the spirit, Nazim. I think that's the spirit that we have to follow through, is that it is all of our problem, the high cost of data.
And Freddie Whitehorn says, I think it's better to ridicule the companies than just not log on. Nobody can see you protesting when you're offline.
Yeah, that's a nice different take on it.
The great, he says, it was not carefully planned out. At News 24, it's a good initiative, but that needs more attention.
He's talking to everyone today, the great. So tell us about why you think, well, data, what the data scenarios are and what's ahead. We'll speak to the Minister shortly. That's Dr. Siabonga Kwele. He'll be joining us in studio, well, in our Pretoria studios, hopefully shortly after 9 o'clock. But we're also running our sports question today, Kendall, and it's a simple thing. Some shake-ups happening within the Protea lineup, and some people say, oh, yeah, it's well overdue.
Absolutely. Well, considering what a torrid start to the English summer we've had, with their test season coming up, it seems as if Andile Patikwayo, as one of the three changes, it gets rewarded for his form.
Yeah, the end of the line for Stephen Cook, some would say, and Heiner Kuhn looks like he's going to be opening the batting. So lots of talking points. Of course, the first test match against England is next week, Friday, the 6th of July. That's how far we are into the year. 6th of July is next week, Friday. It's scary.
Unbelievable.
Okay, Michael, the Big M says, it looks solid and can't wait to see Tampa Bavuma and Keshav Maharaj in action. action. Enjoy watching them play. Wow, interesting. Interesting.
This one coming from Nazim, he says, it's good to see the changes, but if only it will bring the results after a disappointing champion trophy.
Yeah, it was disappointing.
And the great also comes in on this one, saying that Proteas have a big problem when it comes to stepping up away from home. I don't see South Africa becoming ICC champs. Getting back to world number one.
Number one in the world. Yeah, we were number one in the world when we went into the Champions Trophy, mind you. There's a lot, of course, for us to discuss. Myself and Kendall will be back at the end of the first hour and give you a little bit more detail on that story that's a developing one as we speak. But let's get into the news. There's a lot happening in Parliament today.
The Home Affairs Portfolio Committee resumes its investigation into the naturalization of the Gupta family following leaked emails. The Johannesburg High Court is to conduct an in loco inspection at the former John Foster Square police station today. And a second case of bird flu has been reported in Mpumalanga. Now, those are all your headlines, but before we get to the news, let's find out from Kendall Makhabate what's happening on the sports front.
You know what, it's midweek, and there's a lot of action around what's going to be happening over the weekend, especially with Bafana getting their COSAFA squad ready to see if they can match Zimbabwe. Four-time champions, both of them. We'll see how it's going to go.
Yeah, and there seems to be a new vibe in the Bafana team, which is really nice to see. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming, and we're really hoping that translates into results and also feeds into other codes as well. Good morning to you. This is what we have for you in the sports today. The Proteas named 3 debutants to the Test squad to play England in a 4-test series starting next week.
I think he's going to leave it. Oh, magic.
4-time champions Zimbabwe humiliate Mozambique with a 4-0 thrashing in their opening COSAFA Group B match.
He will be in London for Wimbledon, and he will stay as long as I stay in the tournament.
Great news for struggling Novak Djokovic, as he'll have coach Andre Agassi in his corner for as long as required at Wimbledon. And of course, I will be chatting to Eben a little later, closer to the top of the hour, about the Proteas setup going to the England Test series. For now, it's back to Elvis, who's got the news.
Thank you, Kendall. Top story this morning. The Home Affairs Portfolio Committee is due to resume its investigation into the naturalization of the Gupta family today. The leaked Gupta emails show that the former Home Affairs Minister Mlusi Gigaba intervened in the family's naturalization as South African citizens. The committee has summoned Gigaba's, the current Home Affairs Minister, Hlengiwe Mkhize, as well as the Director General, Nkoseli Apleni, to appear before it. Now, the emails show that the Gupta family was initially denied early naturalization by the Home Affairs Department, and that the then Minister Gigaba used his ministerial powers to overturn the decision. He has denied any wrongdoing on his part, saying that he was acting within his powers. Gigaba admitted that he failed to inform Parliament on his decision as required by law. The committee's deliberations will determine whether it will launch a formal inquiry into the matter. Meanwhile, the Democratic Alliance wants the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee investigation to be broadened. The party wants the probe to include how the Gupta family obtained sensitive and confidential state-owned information on some of their critics. Over the weekend, the Gupta leaks revealed that the family spied on prominent South Africans. These include the former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, his wife and ABSA CEO Maria Ramos, EFF leader Julius Malema, and First Rand bosses Laurie Dippenaar and GT Ferreira. The Gupta family also had access to their travelling movements. Cape Town firefighters have had to abandon efforts to fight a blaze which razed the community clinic in Joe Slovo settlement at Milnerton after they were pelted with stones. The clinic was set ablaze during a service delivery protest late yesterday. The mayoral committee member for safety and security, JP Smith, says that the city budget is overstretched and that they will not be able to replace the clinic soon. The community hall was also torched and vehicles were stoned as authorities moved to rein in the protests. It was not immediately clear whether the protest was linked to the removal of shacks in the area. Meanwhile, train services in Mansfield here in Soweto in Johannesburg remain suspended until further notice. This follows the deaths of a 17-year-old boy and a security guard during a service delivery protest in the area yesterday morning. Metro Rail security guards allegedly killed the boy, and angry community members then turned on 3 guards, beating one of them to death. Metro Rail has disputed claims that their security officers were carrying guns. The Johannesburg High Court will conduct an in loco inspection at the former John Foster Square police station today. Now, this is part of a second inquest into the death of political activist Ahmed Timol, more than 45 years after his death. Timol died in apartheid-era police custody in October 1971. The police said he'd committed suicide by jumping from the 10th floor of the police station. The inquest at the time found no one was to be blamed for his death. Timol had been arrested along with Dr. Salim Isop by the state police after being caught with ANC and SACP literature. Dr. Isop is expected to complete his testimony today. Yesterday, he told the inquest that when he last saw Timol, his face was covered with a bag and he was struggling to walk. The only surviving police officer present at the time of Timol's death, João Rodrigues, is also expected to testify. A second case of bird flu has been reported in Mpumalanga. The chicken farm on which the latest case was reported is outside Standerton. It's been placed under quarantine and more than 25,000 chickens will be culled. The Department of Agriculture has announced a ban on the sale of live chickens countrywide while officials assess the extent of the outbreak.
It is not known when government will lift the ban on selling live hens. It could hurt small businesses that sell them mainly to poor communities. Live chickens are usually preferred by those communities as they are a cheaper alternative. Compared to a 2 kg tray of chicken sold at retailers, live hens tend to be cheaper at under 50 rands. Large families can often feed on them for a week. The government says meat from healthy poultry is safe to eat due to strict inspection at abattoirs. But people are urged to avoid eating any birds found dead, dying or sick. South Africa reported an outbreak this month of bird flu on a commercial broiler breeder farm in Mpumalanga where 5,000 birds died and the rest were culled. The country also suspended all trades in birds and chicken products from neighboring Zimbabwe earlier this month after it reported an outbreak of bird flu at a poultry farm. The H5N8 strain has been detected in several countries in Europe, Asia and Africa over the past 2 years. Its spread aided by wild bird migrations. Diabo Seto, SABC News, Johannesburg.
13 correctional services officers are facing suspension for alleged breach of security at the Medium B section of the Johannesburg Sun City prison. Photos of what appears to be exotic dancers inside the prison, popularly known as Sun City, went viral over the weekend. Now, they were allegedly brought in to entertain the prisoners during an event to commemorate Youth Month. The acting commissioner of the Department of Correctional Services, James Smallberger, told a media briefing that the dancers were not part of the official program. Well, that is what you called dirty dancing. But today, very important day for you because we're asking you that question on the poll. It's about data and the cost of data in this country. We're asking you, do we need an inquiry into the price of data in South Africa? 209 votes in, 22 hours left to vote. 95% of you are saying yes, and only 5% even are saying no.
Yeah, obviously there's real anger in South Africa about the exorbitantly high cost of data. We're amongst the highest prices for data in the world, and experts are saying this holds us back as a nation because, as we see even from the people tweeting us, everything happens on the net today, and you need data to be affordable in order for us to supercharge our economy. Anyhow, the Telecommunications Department says it's in discussions with the Economic Development Department to find ways to make data cheaper in this country. Last week, Wednesday, South Africans were urged to stay off social media for the social media blackout campaign to raise awareness over these exorbitantly high prices. South Africa reportedly has the second highest data costs in the world, after only Brazil. The Telecommunications Department says strides have been taken to tackle high data costs, including calling on the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa to inquire into broadband markets. Now, to talk to us about the high price of data here in South Africa, we are fortunate today to be joined by the Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services here in South Africa, Dr. Siyabonga Cwele. A very good morning to you, Mr. Minister, and I thank you for being with us.
Good morning, Ben, and listeners and the viewers of the...
Mr. Minister, in the discussions that you've had with stakeholders and the information that's coming out to you, why are we paying so much for data?
I think the challenge has been with us for long. If you remember, all our presidents have raised this issue of cost to communicate, from President Mandela, Thabo Mbeki, and now President Zuma. The major challenge is the structure of our telecommunication industry. It is a highly concentrated industry, which is almost oligopolistic. And then those who have got market power, because they are competing on infrastructure, not on services.
Yeah.
And that's what is contributing to the high cost of data. Second one is that not many people are using these data services and internet costs. So that's why we talk of internet for all. But the concentration of the industry and the lack of competition in services is what is driving the data cost at the moment.
Are you hopeful that we are going to be able to reduce these costs in the future, bring them down, if you like?
Yes, we are working tirelessly as government as a whole. As we have said in your introduction, we have been discussing with the Minister for Economic Development and asking now the Competition Commission to do an inquiry into the competition, into data prices. And that has started already. Last year, I asked also our regulator, ICASA, to do a study into the broadband market. There's simply some endless delays there, but they are doing the study. Those are the measures which I think is going to help us to expedite the data prices. But secondly, to deal with the structure, because that's where we come in as policymakers. We have come up with this open access wireless network.
Yeah.
And that will help to bring new players into the market and reduce the barriers for entry into the market. So if you can have regional small players, national and regional ones, that's where we'll see real competition in services to you as a citizen and as a consumer, and allow the data to come down. But also, as a public and government, we are rolling out what is called Wi-Fi programs in major municipalities and in small municipalities. The metros have started to lead to, but that's a method of inclusion to ensure that everyone can use some basic data. Just next week, the Deputy President will be opening Wi-Fi program in OR Tambo district in the Eastern Cape, which is a rural province. So those are some of the measures we are bringing in. But more importantly, the third element is this internet for all, where we are saying if you increase your customers, instead of restricting to those few who are paying now, and you'll increase the volume of your revenue and then bring the prices down. So those are the key programs we think that they can help us at this stage.
You touched on Internet for All. Can you just maybe elaborate a little bit more for us on Internet for All so that we can kind of look at what the next decade might look like with regards to this rollout? The first thing is that there are about estimated 22 million South Africans who are not using internet at the moment. And the National Development Plan, which we have all adopted,
say that by end of 2020, year 2020, everyone must be online. So this is a partnership program we are having with civil society, with international organizations, and our own industries. It focuses on few things to reach those people. We know exactly where they are according to State South Africa. Majority of them, they're in rural provinces. If you look, the most deprived one being Alfred Nzo in Eastern Cape, and others in the rural provinces. So the first thing is to try and find innovative ways to roll out infrastructure to those areas so that they can have broadband infrastructure. The second one is affordability and making sure that the data is affordable, what we're talking now. Currently, the data costs on average 4.6% of average household income. And we are seeing that in terms of our policy, it should come down to about 1%. So it's still quite high at the moment. The other one is devices. These devices we use to communicate, whether it's a cell phone or computers. We're finding a way of that we should localize those. Let the small manufacturers build those, because South Africans have produced these things, but they didn't have the capacity to manufacture. And the third element is that pattern of skills, making sure that everyone can use internet, basic skills. You can use the internet to run your business, you get confidence. So the skilling of the nation, a lot of international companies have said that they'll play a role in enabling South Africans to use internet for their own development, for business, and for their own knowledge. And those are the key programs, and we think. And then the content, of course, the local content. Local content is king, and people can produce their own local area content, which they can digitize and commercialize for their benefit. Because the issue of content is important because, yes?
No, carry on, sir.
Because if people know how they use this internet for their benefit, then more and more people will use it. Even the Gogos will use it if they know that it benefits them. Yes.
Mr. Minister, you touched on the work of the Competition Commission a little bit earlier, and we understand the monopolistic nature of South Africa's economy, and we know how many cases are before the Competition Commission and the Tribunal, I think 133 in all sectors. When we talk about data and the high cost of data, of course, South Africans are angry about this. There's no doubt about it. We're running a poll, and South Africans are telling us they want a judicial inquiry into the high cost of data. And one could even go further in saying that the fines that are being imposed on these big companies are not getting it done. Is it not time to take action against unscrupulous executives that push up these prices?
Yeah, much as the Competition Commission and the CASA has got other things to do, we have asked them to prioritize this. The reason why we have urged them to prioritize this work, because there's this outcry from our citizens. But the challenge also we're trying to address is that it's starting to exclude a lot of people. So we must push for inclusion, that more people use the internet, and because it's affordable to citizens of this country. So I'm quite confident that despite all the workload they have, they've assured us that they'll prioritize this work. But we don't want them to do a bad work. They must do it correctly but expeditiously so that we can respond. Because our youth, our citizens, all of them, I've not seen a single person who say the data costs are reasonable. And they want to use this data for their own development. If you check our youth, why they're using internet, it's not just for social media. They are looking for job opportunities. They are looking for educational material. We've done studies in this respect. So those are public good and public use why they want to use this internet for and data for. So I hope that the Competition Commission and the ICASA will expedite this work this year.
Mr. Minister, thank you for joining us, and I wish you all the best with the rollout of the infrastructure and the Internet for All program. It's really needed in rural South Africa. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you, Uben, and your viewers.
That's our Minister of Telecommunications and Postal Services here in South Africa, Dr. Siyabonga Cwele, joining us live from Pretoria, and he says that moves are afoot. Moves are definitely afoot by government to change this around. Of course, we're asking you on our poll, do we need an inquiry into the price of data in South Africa? And it's overwhelming. South Africans are angry about this, there's no doubt. We are paying the second highest price for data in the world. Do we need more competition? Is that what we need? Do we need more competition? Well, Michael, the Big M, says to us, yes, it's long overdue. And what happened to I'm Thibaut Touched and the Gareth Cliff campaign? Well, Big M, they got paid off, I'm told. Nazim says to us, Newsroom, yes, we do, because some politicians have shares in these companies and they are looting us. We're talking about the social media blackout. This one from Marvin to the World. He says, yes, indeed, data charges in South Africa are expensive, more expensive than in Zim. Imagine. And not only data, but international and regional calls. Yes, Marvin, it's tough. It's tough to grow yourself. It's tough to do business. It's tough for the little guy. Eating us. Anyhow, let's take a look at what's on Twitter right now. If you do have data, this is what you can look for. Hashtag prison strippers. Yes, it's the official and top trending hashtag, as many people want to know how this incident was allowed to take place. Now, 13 officials are pending suspension and the investigation is underway. But let's not prejudge it. Let the investigation tell us what actually happened. These pictures might just be part of an elaborate cabaret show. We don't know the facts. Let's see what the facts are. Of course, the second case of bird flu has been reported in Mpumalanga. The chicken farm responsible has been placed under quarantine and more than 25,000 chickens will be culled. Hashtag bird flu outbreak, that is. And moving further afield, Spanish forest caught alight. Around 1,500 people had to be evacuated. The hashtag Spanish fire is doing the rounds. Then in England, the Queen's taxpayer-funded income is expected to raise to £82.2 million. That's just over R1 billion to have the Queen around. Her Majesty comes at a high price. Now, let's take a look at our picture of the day. This one from Reuters Africa, and it talks to, what we've seen here in South Africa. South Africa imposes a countrywide ban on the sale of live hens to contain avian flu. Yes, this is a very familiar picture in rural South Africa where we see, of course, live hens being for sale all across our country roads. Let's take a look at our comment of the day. This one comes from the F Word, who says, hashtag prison strippers. Dude, I'm not a prisoner and I've never in my life seen a stripper in real life. A guy behind bars beat me to it. Well, who's to blame for that, I ask. Anyhow, let's move on. Let's take a look at what's happening in the courts. We'll start in the East Rand, where the bail application for Eskom technician Dave Ngwenya is expected to continue in the Springs Magistrates Court. Now, Ngwenya was arrested in Carltonville about 2 weeks ago in connection with the death of Thembisile Yende, who was found dead in an office at an Eskom substation in Springs. Then we move to Bloemfontein in the Free State. 4 learners from the Louis Botha Technical High School, ages 14, are expected to appear in the Children's Court in connection with the alleged rape of a 13-year-old girl. Now, the girl was allegedly raped after class on the school premises. They are facing charges of rape and accessory to rape in this case. Then, in Port Elizabeth, where the state is expected to call investigating officer Captain Kana Swanepoel to the stand in the Port Elizabeth High Court to testify in the murder trial of Christopher Panayiotou. Swanepoel is the state's last witness before the defense has a chance to present its case. Swanepoel is expected to shed more light on the incriminating video in which Panayiotou hands over money to an alleged middleman. The state believes he paid Sioni to recruit hitmen. It's a story that has Port Elizabeth and South Africa sitting up and taking notice indeed. We're going to take a short commercial break. You're watching Newsroom here on SABC News. When we come back, we'll talk more about the high cost of data in South Africa and how are we going to bring it down. What are your views at SABC Newsroom? Don't miss it after this break.
cloud systems and robots have taken over a lot of what used to be done manually.
Our accounting system is actually based on the cloud.
Google nowadays can tell you where you parked your car.
And Africa's entrepreneurs are using technology to create.
With Pocket Masipala, you can basically do all the services that you would do at the municipality physically by going there, but you can now do them on a mobile app.
Join Ms. Phumelele Zondi on Sundays at 9 p.m. on SABC News.
Of course, we're continuing this discussion on data must fall. Now, we're running that poll. We're conducting it here, and we want to know from you, what do you make of all of this? And do we need an inquiry really into the price of data in South Africa? There you can see the numbers, Mr. Goldstuck. 96% are saying yes, 4% are saying no. So a lot of overwhelming support for an inquiry into the cost of data. But as you know, the data must fall hashtag has found its way back into Twitter last week. You can recall that Twitter users were called for a social media blackout to protest the high cost of data. Last year, somebody talked about him on the Twitter handle earlier. Touch Central CEO Thibaut Touch and Cliff Central founder Gareth Cliff addressed Parliament's Telecommunications and Postal Services Portfolio Committee about their concerns over the high cost of data in the country. But last week, social media blackout failed spectacularly. Now, to find out why the social media blackout failed, we are joined by media analyst and commentator on the internet, information, as well as mobile communications and technology, internet, and managing director of Worldwide Works, Arthur Goldstuck. Sir, very good morning to you and welcome. First and foremost, why do you think that a blackout failed dismally?
It failed for the same reason the Data Must Fall campaign failed. And that's because it's a very blunt instrument. It doesn't recognize the way data is priced in South Africa and for whom data is expensive and for whom it's cheap. So when people say that our data is the second most expensive in the world, they're correct, but only within a very narrow definition.
Explain that definition and why is it narrow?
That's exactly the issue. The real issue is that when you say data must fall, the networks will say data has fallen. And in fact, if you look at the average cost of data over the last few years, it's come down dramatically. In fact, if you are wealthy or you're well off and you can buy a big bundle of data, you have amongst the cheapest data in the world in South Africa. So the operators could even argue, yes, South Africa has the cheapest data in the world, not the second most expensive data in the world. But, and that's a very big but, and this is where the campaign fails. The campaign doesn't recognize the fact that the poor are paying amongst the most expensive data prices in the world. So if you can't afford a bundle up front, and that's a crucial element, affordability. If you can't afford a data bundle up front, then whenever you use data, it comes off your airtime. And when data comes off airtime, you are paying the peak out of bundle rate. So on Cell C, that's 99 cents. On MTN and Vodacom, it's R1 and R2 per meg. So I saw a post on Twitter the other day that said that data in South Africa is 150 Rand per gig, compared to other countries in Africa where it's below 100 Rand, below 50 Rand.
11 Rand or something to that effect in Kenya, I believe?
But in fact, that is completely wrong. Data is 1,500 Rand a gig in South Africa, if not 15,000 Rand a gig, depending who you're buying your data from and where you are getting it, because you're paying on some operators 2 Rand per meg. For 100 meg, that's already 2,000 Rand a meg.
So does that perhaps then indicate, Mr. Goldstuck, that the poor is being penalized for being prepaying their data?
The poor are being penalized because they can't afford to buy a bundle up front. So the operators will tell you that the reason that they have the higher pricing for out-of-bundle rate is they want to encourage everyone to buy bundles, because the moment they buy bundles, the cost falls dramatically. But that misunderstands the nature of the usage of the mass market, of the poor, and of those who can't afford bundles, and also punishes them for being poor. So you're punishing people for being poor. Sorry, I overstated the number per meg earlier, but if you multiply 2 Rand per meg by 100 megs or 1,000 megs, you start seeing 2,000 Rand per gig for data. So someone who is poor and is using it off the airtime, to be able to have a serious session of data use every day is going to be spending something like 2,000 Rand a month. Obviously, they wouldn't spend that. They wouldn't have that kind of money. But that's the kind of picture that you're painting when you're talking about data must fall. You can't say data must fall. You've got to say data must fall for the poor. Yeah. That's a campaign that we would like to, in fact, get going.
What are some of the technological advancements that can be used to reduce the cost of data in South Africa, you think? Is it even possible?
In fact, with 4G, or what they call LTE advanced, it makes the infrastructure more efficient. It makes the data connection more efficient. More people can use the same spectrum at a higher speed, which means that ultimately, once all the infrastructure is in place, it'll cost less to serve more people at a higher speed. So already we have the advancements in place that can make data cheaper. What we really need to make data cheaper is for the operators to say, okay, we're going to have a ceiling price. Telkom, ironically, is the only operator that has brought the price down to a reasonable level, 29 cents per meg. That's the kind of ceiling we should be talking about. And ICASA should really be mandating that ceiling. You do need an inquiry, but a very short inquiry. It takes 15 minutes to figure out the fact that data should have a cap of, let's say, between 20 cents and 40 cents per meg. And suddenly that will bring a large proportion of people into the internet and data environment.
Why is it then that our neighbors, such as Namibia, has lower data costs than what we have here in South Africa, per meg, or per gig for that matter?
For one thing, the operators don't see the poor as a cash cow. They see it as their responsibility to bring internet access to as many people as possible. And for another thing, there's a national sense of, you could say, agreement that everyone needs to be part of this internet environment to be able to grow the economy. It benefits everyone interactively, you could say. So the whole concept of Ubuntu actually applies here, that the more it helps other people, the more it helps you. And that's how we should see data in South Africa.
Now, you heard the minister a little bit earlier on, and he says that the structure of our telecommunications industry is problematic because it's highly monopolized. Is that your contention as well?
I don't believe it's highly monopolized. We have 4 major players, and we have a few others who are able to come into the periphery of that kind of environment. You have something like 9 service providers who could play in this space. That's a fairly competitive space. What has been happening, though, is that the dominant players in this space have been able to call the shots. So we had the whole debacle of the interconnect fee for some years, where MTN and Vodacom colluded to push up the interconnect fee to R1.25 per call, and the regulator allowed that to happen. Ultimately, the regulator forced it back down to below 20 cents per call, and that's what brought the price of voice calls down so dramatically. Now the regulator needs to do this. Brought the price of voice calls down so dramatically. Now the regulator needs to do the same with data.
Who's ultimately responsible for the cost of data? Is it the regulator or is it the service provider?
The service providers are responsible for the pricing, but the regulator is responsible for overseeing that pricing. So the service providers actually have a moral responsibility to bring down the cost of data for the poor specifically, as they have for the rich. And the regulator has a responsibility to oblige the operators to bring down that cost. It doesn't take a lot of inquiry, and it doesn't take a lot of regulation to do just that.
Well, we live in a capitalist society, so do you think that morality will thump or trump profits for that?
We live in a capitalist society that has a developmental agenda, and there's a national interest at stake here. The national interest is to uplift the whole of society. So that trumps the capitalist objective by far, particularly the fact that the operators have been given the license in order to generate profit, but on the basis of certain conditions. And those conditions should include not penalizing the poor for being poor.
Let me just take a look at that poll again to see where we are right now as we speak here with our guest this morning, Mr. Arthur Goldstock. He's director at Worldwide Works. So far, 291 votes in. Now you can see the difference. 96%, that's overwhelmingly. People are saying that we need an inquiry into the price of data in South Africa. Only 4%, and I guess that 4% is definitely the 4 networks.
I would say so.
Let's take a look at what people are telling us about the cost of data on the Twitter handle at SABC Newsrooms. Let's go. There we go. From Jamil says, internet should be free for all. Why must we pay such a high price for something that is basically a need amongst everyone? This one from Leboang says, our government never loved us. The service providers are working hand in hand with government on this crazy prices of the data. Well, there you have it. There was somebody said earlier that we have a department of data that needs to also fall. Aluta says, we want those prices to go down dramatically. Hashtag data must fall. Mr. Goldstock, there you have some of the sentiments of people. In closing, what do you think can be done?
Well, data can't be free. Someone has to pay for it. But it doesn't have to be as much as what is being paid now. If you consider the fact that wealthy people who buy big bundles and are the biggest users and generate the highest revenue for the operators are paying such a low cost, there's very little reason why the operators can't bring down the cost for the poor. And it's not about predicting or being able to forecast usage of the network. They can look at their own patterns, their own usage patterns, and forecast that usage. So that's a very poor excuse. They really have to look into their own souls and decide that they're going to do this in the national interest.
Mr. Goldstock, thank you so much for your time, sir, joining us here in studio. That was the Managing Director at Worldwide Works, Arthur Goldstock, talking to us about why the hashtag social media blackout failed and the cost of data. After the newspapers, as well as some of you look at social media, Eben will continue this discussion with the regulator. We are not gossiping about the regulator. He's sitting right here waiting for us to talk to him about their role in the cost of data. Over to Eben. In fact, first let's take a look at the newspapers before we go to Eben. Let's take a look at the front pages from around the globe. And we start off in Europe. The Times reports that Britain's state-of-the-art aircraft carrier, which powered out to sea for the first time last night, has the same outdated software on board that was hit by a massive cyber attack last month. And then we move on to New York. The Financial Times there says that the White House has warned that the Syrian regime that it will pay a heavy price for any chemical weapons attack after Washington said it had detected preparations for such an operation. And finally, in Israel, the Jerusalem Post reports that the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should have considered whether he could deliver on pledges to change the status quo on conversion and at the Western Wall before making promises that he could. Jewish Agency Chairman Nathan Sharansky said yesterday. Those are some of your newspapers from around the globe. Let's take a look at your Facebook page. In Cape Town, firefighters have had to abandon efforts to fight a blaze which razed the community clinic in the Joe Slovo settlement in Milnerton after they were pelted with stones. Can you believe that? Then here in Gauteng, Enterprise Propeller is still battling to recover hundreds of millions of rands it loaned to township small businesses and cooperatives. Now, we invited them a couple of times to studio, but unfortunately we couldn't have that discussion. And then finally, the U.S. Supreme Court on Monday partially reinstated Donald Trump's controversial travel ban, targeting citizens from 6 predominantly Muslim countries, prompting the president to claim a victory for national security. Now, you can find all of these stories on our Facebook page and SABC News. The Johannesburg High Court will conduct an in loco inspection at the former John Foster Square police station today. Now, this is part of a second inquest into the death of political activist Ahmed Timor, more than 45 years after his death. For the latest, we are joined by Mashlako Komani from the Johannesburg Central Police Station, the former John Foster. A very good morning to you, my dear. Tell us, what can we expect today at that in loco inspection at John Foster, the former John Foster Square?
We are not yet at the John Foster Square. We'll be making our way there around about 2 o'clock. But what we can expect when we do eventually get to the Johannesburg Central Police Station. Yesterday, a witness took the stand, Mr. Salim Isop. He was the gentleman that was arrested alongside Ahmed Timor, and he gave his testimony, and he'll just be pointing out some of the places that he mentioned in his testimony and in his affidavit affidavit, which is specifically an office of Mr. Colonel Greyling, as well as the 10th floor. I think he was in room 1026, where he was being interrogated. But what is going to be taking place today at the court where we are at the Johannesburg High Court, we'll be listening to the rest of Mr. Isop's testimony. He'll just be finishing that up before we make our way to the on-site inspection at the then John Foster Square.
Shlako, you'll give us an update a little bit later, but that's where we got to leave it for now. Let's now come back to studio, and where we talk about the high cost of data, it's over to Eben.
Yeah, but South Africa reportedly has the second highest data cost globally, after only Brazil. Now, the Telecommunications Department says strides have been made to tackle these high data costs, including calling on the Independent Communications Authority of South Africa, ICASA, to inquire about broadband markets. Now, at the same time, network operator MTN says it understands consumers' call to have data prices lowered, and they're ready to engage all stakeholders on the cost-effective consumption of data. Now, to talk to us about the price of data and whether it can be reduced, well, we are joined by Ruben Motlaloga, ICASA's acting chairperson. A very good morning to you, Mr. Motlaloga. How are you today?
Good morning, Alvin, and good morning to the viewers out there. We're good.
You saw the viewers are not happy, yeah?
Yeah, especially because they want free data.
That's part of the thing. I want to talk to you firstly about your discussions that you've had with the operators. Of course, fingers are being pointed at the operators and saying that they are unscrupulous in dealing with this. What have you found in your discussions and your investigations thus far?
Look, I think there's about 3 legs to the whole intervention on the cost of data. The first is that we have published the questionnaire that deals with the priority markets, which may include the broadband markets, and identifying those markets. Is there a need for some pro-competitive interventions that we need to impose in order to bring some efficiencies in terms of the costing of data and so on? And that process has started. The second is that we're engaging with the operators to deal mainly with 2 issues. The first is that what we are observing, even though the trend has been downwards in terms of the cost of data, but it is still a little bit higher. Now, as to whether it is expensive or not, that's a process that we'll have to undergo, but it is still higher. Now, we've got to deal with the expiry of data, and also to deal with the in-bundle and out-bundle price differential. And those people who buy, big bundles, they spend less per megabyte, and those that, buy little bundles, they spend higher per megabyte. And those that are out of bundle, they pay. So that issue addressing, and we're looking at the regulatory framework, particularly the end user subscriber charter, to say we need to address that, and as a result, also there's some moral persuasion and suasion that, as you say, the engagements with the operators and also the National Consumer Commission.
You're talking about in-bundle and out-bundle. Of course, in-bundle is for the rich and out-bundle is for the poor. And out-bundle is very expensive, almost 2 rand a meg in some cases.
It is.
That means the poor is being targeted.
As we say, we need to address that. Of course, operators will say, look, we're attempting to encourage our people to stay in bundles. But that differential, it's chalk and cheese. So that is the issue we'll have to deal with in terms of our end-user subscriber charter, and say, how do we deal with the expiry of data, then the in-bundle and out-bundle price differential?
How do we get to a point where, if there is an investigation and we find that there might be issues of collusion and price fixing and these kinds of things within it, the Competition Commission are getting involved as well. Is it enough to impose a fine in that case? As ICASA, how do you feel about these kinds of issues?
We hope that there isn't collusion. And of course, whether there is or no collusion, the Competition Commissions will make a call, would obviously collaborate with whatever investigation that the Competition Commission is doing. On our part, we are looking at issues that have got to deal with what are mandated to do, and the Commission has got that, and there's an MOU that we have with them. But as I say, we've got an end-user subscriber charter.
Yeah.
We also have the National Consumer Commission that together we're trying to deal with the issues of expiry of data, as well as the in-bundle and out-of-bundle. But then we need to also, at the policy level, deal with the question of spectrum, because it's a serious input cost that builds into how data is priced. To the extent that operators have got spectrum constraints, we expect miracles around coverage, around speeds, around cost. It's almost a fantasy. So we need to address the question of spectrum, release spectrum, license spectrum, so that we enable, one, investments in the sector, two, also the operators to operate.
Ideally, if you could be 2 years down the line from now, and you look back as ICASA, what would you have liked to see happen in those 2 years?
One, I would have liked to see the cost of data going down, and that would have happened through the successful migration, and two, successful licensing of spectrum to operators. Because this is the only sector where there's no investment strike. There's more than 20 billion rand that is invested in the sector per annum. So let's enable the industry to grow, and as it grows, the GDP of the country will grow. So that's where I want to see the country going, and of course with high quality of services that should be available to consumers out there, obviously effectively priced.
Let's hope your dream comes true. It's all of our dream as well. Of course, we're asking our viewers, they're voting today with their data to tell you we need an inquiry, and you are busy with this inquiry, but they want a judicial inquiry. Some are even calling for presidential inquiry into this thing. But as you can see, it's an overwhelming yes from 330 odd votes. People are very passionate about this, and some even call it a human right in the 21st century to make data affordable. So just to show you what people are voting, they want a proper inquiry, and I can tell them that you're the man that's looking into this. Let's just have a look at a couple of the tweets that are now coming in. This one from Noel, who says, yes, we need this inquiry. Why in South Africa data charges are so expensive than other countries? No, that's the investigation that Mr. Motlaloha is doing, and he's going to make sure that something happens. This one from Kopas Mashego. He says, yes, it should. We need data to apply for jobs, to register at schools and varsities. Data must fall. It's a human right, like water and oxygen now, people are saying. TikTok says, Newsroom, let's hear what ICASA has to say. Well, yeah, easy ICASA. Mr. Motlaloha is with us, and he tells us, moves are afoot, discussions are underway, and that inquiry is being done under his watch. And we are going to see this industry transformed in the short to medium term. We live in hope. We're going to take a short little break. Thank you to Mr. Ruben Motlaloha, ICASA's acting chairperson, for talking to us about the high price of data you guys tell us here in South Africa. After the break, we'll talk sports.
The British how they felt about being the biggest cider drinkers in the world, they'd say something like this. Yes. Well, we don't know about you, but that sounds like a challenge. Challenge accepted. Tops at Spa. Good cider, good advice, no stiff upper lip.
Welcome back. Yeah, the Proteas, they've called up Heine Kuhn, Aiden Markram and Andile Phehlukwayo as the new caps for the 4-test series against England. And there's a possibility of Dean Alga even captaining the Proteas in the first test in the absence of Faf du Plessis. Kendall is here. Kendall says he's not worried. He thinks the Proteas still have enough to do well.
Well, I didn't quite say I'm not worried. Following the Proteas and how they've been going, they definitely the Proteas are a confident side, if I could put it that way. And it seems as if their confidence is a bit on the wane right now, especially after this really tough start to their tour of England. With that said, though, calling in people like Heine Kuhn, Aiden Markram and Andile Phehlukwayo, who've tasted success previously outside of this Proteas setup, is definitely a good thing. Some fresh blood, looking at what's going to be happening in the test.
They're a different test side, and they're a different side under Faf du Plessis' captaincy. It's been clear.
Without it.
Until AB took over, they were unbeatable.
Yeah.
Then AB took over, and there was this massive dip, and now Faf is going to come back. Are you hopeful that suddenly the form will come back?
I think Faf has got a bit more of a mountain to climb now than he did the first time around, because when he came in and captained the side when AB was injured and so on, he was a bit of an unknown force and so on. But with that said, I think it's going to be a little different now. He's expecting his first child himself. I don't know. It's going to be a bit very hard to call right away. What I can talk about, though, is in terms of the selections themselves, I think it's clear that Heine Kuhn is finally being rewarded for the form. This guy is not a young man. He's the same age as Faf and Amla and those. He's 33.
He comes from that same generation. He's a proven professional over many, many years, and he's going to open the batting. Stephen Cook, we see here in the picture. It looks like the ship has sailed for Stephen Cook. His test career is over. He's 36 years old.
You know, Stephen Cook is one of the most honourable sports people I've ever encountered. He's the one who went to England to test out conditions, and he failed, and that's when the selectors saw that, you know what, let's take Stephen Cook out. He gave them no excuse to keep him in the side and given Kuhn a chance. At 33 years old, this man 2 years ago, you'll remember, was the top scorer in the Sunforce series in the domestic league. So yeah, Kuhn definitely deserves to be in there, opening. Aiden Markram. He's the first World Cup winning coach for South Africa. Yes, it was at age group level. 2014, he won the World Cup. Aiden Markram comes in, and he's a possible cover, even for Kuhn himself. Yeah, he is cover at the top of the order. It'll be interesting to see how he goes. You guys have been tweeting us. We're going to take those tweets at the top of the hour as they come through. Right now, we're going to take a little break. We'll be back at 10 o'clock. There's a lot happening. Don't miss it at the top in a couple of minutes' time.
Do you support the calls made by Bladen Nzimande and Solly Mapaila?
It is not a call by Comrade Solly Mapaila and Comrade Bladen Nzimande. It is the position of the party.
Yes.
And the position of the party, we support it unambiguously.
Why?
The theory of the revolution, in simple terms, was that revolutionary forces are going to take charge of the state. And having taken charge of the state, they are going to transform the state to eventually transform society.
Join me in Port Sedu live every Monday to Thursday at 17:30.
A top 5 rated horse racing event in the world, fashion is a highlight for those in attendance. All decked out in blue and white, the Lomorians Queen Plate is the premier event that kicked off everyone's social calendar.
That it was all part of my master plan to cast John Legend but deprive him of his normal instrument and give that one to Ryan.
The House of Truth is not just a name. It is a religion. It is a lifestyle. It is a conviction that drives us.
What really excites me is how people have kept it very simple and also played with the theme, and how each person has interpreted it in their own way.
To stay updated with all the current entertainment news, tune into Trends every Saturday from 12 to 1.
big city. We're live from Joburg. Myself and Kendall Makamati with you for the next hour. This is Newsroom. Kendall, busy morning.
It's a very busy morning. Very interesting discussion you had with ICASA in the house, and all our viewers wanted to find out what ICASA has to say.
Yeah, the acting chairperson was a little bit muted in his views, but obviously they're busy with inquiries, they're busy with discussion, so there's not much that I think they can let out of the bag until they make some announcements. Let's hope that those announcements, well, is going to bring the cost of data down, because people are voting with their data right now, and they're saying to us, we want an official inquiry into the high cost of data in South Africa.
Yeah, I'm sure they're very happy to find out what ICASA comes out with when they're done with it. A whole 332 votes have come in. 95% are saying yes, an inquiry definitely into the price of data in South Africa is required.
Yeah, that's an overwhelming yes, and you guys are also tweeting us, and of course there's a lot of unhappiness. We are the second highest data costs in the world. That's if you go out of bundle. Well, that means if you are poor and you can't afford a bundle in the first place, you're paying 2 rand a meg. 2 rand a meg? Can't even.
That's insane.
Yeah.
Paul Ngamangeng says the question remains, why is data more expensive in South Africa than any other African country, despite our world-class IT infrastructure?
That is the million-dollar question, Paul. We've heard a whole lot of reasons why and why not. You decide. I can't say it on air, but I have my own views. Ta says to us, 1 gig must cost 10 rand. Anything more than that is a rip-off. Yes, Ta, it's 11 rand a gig in India. So he's on point. 11 rand a gig in India. That's what they're paying.
And Unati comes in and says, you know what, we don't want free data, but the costs are too much, more than food and petrol. Data must fall.
Yeah, Unati, we are being milked, but there are 133 cases of price fixing collusion before the Competition Commission. It's time for us to be activists in South Africa against these corporate gangsters. And we ask you then, why weren't they activists last week when they had the social media blackout?
Now, very interesting way of coming into that one, but yes, social media blackout, it actually trended on Twitter last time around, and we're asking you, it failed spectacularly last time, but we're asking you, why did it fail? Why did the social media blackout fail on social media?
Gifted Nico says to us, you can't punish Eskom by switching off the geyser. We need a different campaign and a different approach. Nico, I think you are right there, my friend. We need to rethink this thing, but we do need activism because data is becoming a human right.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree with you more. Collins Delele says many people were caught off guard. It needs proper organization to get off the ground so that it has an impact on these networks.
Yeah, maybe if we make it a 2019 problem, maybe then it will come.
We'll get it right.
Yeah, Marvin says to us, it failed simply because there's no face to it. There's not even an online petition, and people's curiosity made them online to see who's online. Yes, there's no face to it.
But there was a face at one point, a high-profile personality who seems to have come off, he's not on the radar anymore. There was a face to it at some point.
Thibaut Touch.
Yes, that's right.
Thibaut Touch and Gareth Cliff.
What happened to that?
I have no comment on it, but you can research it and see that it kind of went away. Anyhow, let's talk about sport rather now, not be controversial, Kendall.
Not spicy in the morning.
There we go. The Proteas are in England after a bad start there in the month of June. Hasn't been a great June month for the Proteas, has it?
No. It's been a bit dismal to say the least. And both Afaf and AB de Villiers are not going to be playing this very first test, it seems. Disetso Mogofe comes in with, because we wanted to find out from you, what do you make of the changes in the Proteas test lineup? And Disetso says, change is good. The squad looks a bit tired. Let's just hope the change will ignite that Protea fire.
I hope so. I've got high hopes for Heino Kuhn, because I think he deserves a break, and he got a double 100 and 100 in the last couple of weeks. So
yes, he did.
Let's hope that he can take that form into the test. The big M, Michael, is back. He says the Proteas, it looks solid and can't wait to see Thabo Bavuma and Keshav Maharaj in action. Enjoy watching them play. Nice to hear that, Michael, it's not just about the big name players.
Absolutely, and Nazim also weighs in on this one, saying it's good to see the changes, but only if it will bring the results after a disappointing Champions Trophy.
Yeah, guys, keep tweeting us. Keep tweeting us. Tuesday morning, there's a lot of news for us to get through. There's a lot happening in Parliament. We'll try and do a roundup and get to all of it, but let's take the headlines. The Home Affairs Portfolio Committee resumes its investigation into the naturalization of the Gupta family following leaked emails. The Johannesburg High Court is to conduct an in loco inspection at the former John Foster Square police station later today. And a second case of bird flu has now been reported in Mpumalanga. Those are your top stories right now. Let's go over to Kendall for more.
Yeah, well, thank you very much. The Proteas squad is definitely a talking point going into the weekend, going to next week. Remember, they play their very first one on the 6th of July. Good morning to you. This is what else we've got for you in the sports today. The Proteas named 3 debutants to the Test squad to play England in a 4-test series starting next week.
I think he's going to leave it. Oh, magic, magic, magic.
4-time champions Zimbabwe humiliate Mozambique with a 4-0 thrashing in their opening COSAFA Group B match.
He will be in London for Wimbledon, and he will stay as long as I stay in the tournament.
And great news for struggling Novak Djokovic, as he'll have coach Andre Agassi in his corner for as long as required at Wimbledon. All this and more in more detail we've got prepared for you for 10:40. Do stay with us as Eben has got the news.
Yeah, thanks, Kendall. Very good morning to you once again. Now, the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee is due to resume its investigation into the naturalization of the Gupta family in just a moment from now. Now, the leaked Gupta emails show that former Home Affairs Minister Malusi Gigaba intervened in the family's naturalization as South African citizens. The committee has summoned Gigaba, current Home Affairs Minister Tlengiwe Mkhize, and the Director General Nkuseli Apleni to appear before it. These are live visuals as it's getting underway. The emails show that the Gupta family was initially denied early naturalization by the Home Affairs Department and that Gigaba used his ministerial powers to overturn that decision. He has denied any wrongdoing on his part, saying he was acting within his powers. Now, Gigaba admitted that he failed to inform Parliament on his decision as required by law. The committee's deliberations will determine whether it will launch a formal inquiry into the matter. Now, we'll be going there shortly, but let's just get up to date with all the morning's news first. The Democratic Alliance wants the Home Affairs Portfolio Committee investigation to be broadened now. The party wants the probe to include how the Gupta family obtained sensitive and confidential state-owned information on some of their critics. Now, over this weekend past, the Gupta leaks revealed that the family spied on prominent South Africans. These included former Finance Minister Trevor Manuel, his wife and ABSA CEO Maria Ramos, EFF leader Julius Malema, and First Rand bosses Laurie Dipana and GT Ferreira. The Gupta family also had access to their travelling movements. The ANC is wrapping up preparations for its policy conference, which kicks off this Friday. Some 5,000 delegates are expected to converge at Nasrec, south of Johannesburg, for 5 days. The first 2 days, which were initially set down for a consultative conference, will focus on reflecting on the state of the party.
The final touches to what promises to be an eventful policy conference. The ANC's unity will be put to the test under this roof. Amid bitter contestation, the party is adamant about what the conference is not.
There is no item called election of leadership at this policy conference because it doesn't have those powers. It can elect, it can remove any person in leadership. All what it has, it must look at and review and make a recommendation on the policies of the ANC.
It's all about the battle of ideas. Should the constitution be amended to accelerate land redistribution? Is the current 86 membership of the NEC too bloated, as suggested by the Eastern Cape? While Gauteng and the Youth League, among others, want 3 more top officials, bringing the number to 9. And should the centre of power be vested upon the presidency?
What are the things we need to do better and accelerate, including to change the economy? We must not compromise about radical economic transformation, regardless of the noises we hear, but we must be responsible as we do so.
The alliance partners have been invited but will not address the conference. This includes COSATU, which has called on President Zuma to step down. The ANC says the fact that alliance partners don't speak at the policy conferences is not out of the ordinary. Aldrin St. Pierre, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Now, the Johannesburg High Court will later today conduct an in-loco inspection at the former John Vorster Square police station. This is part of a second inquest into the death of political activist Ahmed Timmel more than 45 years after his death. These are live pictures from the court. Timmel died in apartheid-era police custody in October of 1971. The police said he'd committed suicide by jumping from the 10th floor of the police station. The inquest at the time found no one was to blame for his death. Timmel had been arrested along with Dr. Selim Essop by state police after being caught with ANC and SACP literature. Dr. Essop is expected to complete his testimony this morning. Yesterday, he told the inquest that when he last saw Timmel, his face was covered with a bag and he was struggling to walk. The only surviving police officer present at the time of his death, João Rodrigues, is also expected to testify. South Africa's quest for an HIV vaccine has been given a shot in the arm. A University of KwaZulu-Natal academic has been selected as an international research scholar by the Howard Hughes Medical Institute. This means several million rand in funding to develop his innovative research.
Wow, this is interesting.
Meet Dr. Zaza Ndlovu, one of 41 scientists from 16 countries selected as an international research scholar.
It's a very prestigious scholarship. It came from the Howard Hughes Medical Institute, HHMI, and this award was done in conjunction with other philanthropists, including the Bill Gates Foundation and the Wellcome Trust, and another foundation from Portugal. And the aim was to sponsor or fund young upcoming scientists that have potential to do cutting-edge science from all over the world.
His research is focused on identifying which cells in the immune system are equipped with the necessary arsenal to fight off HIV. Part of his work involves testing on humanized mice.
Mice naturally don't get infected with HIV, and these experiments we can't do them in human beings because of ethical reasons. So what we do is we replace the mice's own immune cells with human cells, so these mice can now become infectable with HIV. And we use this as a system to test different components of the immune system to try and see which one is most effective at suppressing HIV. We isolate our cells of interest from our patients here, and we ship them to the US, and I go over to the US to work with these mice, where I actually go and inject these cells in the mice, and logistically it's very expensive. And so this funding is going to allow us to set up this humanized mouse model system in our lab here, and so all the experiments will be done right here. So it also brings in the capacity building here and transfer of technology from the US to South Africa.
Each scholar is set to receive around $650,000 US over 5 years. Blaine Herman, SABC News, Durban.
A second case of bird flu has been reported in Mpumalanga. The chicken farm on which the latest case was reported is outside Standerton. It's been placed under quarantine and more than 25,000 chickens will be culled. The Department of Agriculture has announced a ban on the sale of live chickens countrywide while officials assess the extent of the latest outbreak.
It is not known when government will lift the ban on selling live hens. It could hurt small businesses that sell them mainly to poor communities. Live chickens are usually preferred by those communities as they are a cheaper alternative. Compared to a 2 kg tray of chicken sold at retailers, live hens tend to be cheaper at under 50 rands. Large families can often feed on them for a week. The government says meat from healthy poultry is safe to eat due to strict inspection at abattoirs. But people are urged to avoid eating any birds found dead, dying or sick. South Africa reported an outbreak this month of bird flu on a commercial broiler breeder farm in Mpumalanga where 5,000 birds died and the rest were culled. The country also suspended all trades in birds and chicken products from neighboring Zimbabwe earlier this month after it reported an outbreak of bird flu at a poultry farm. The H5N8 strain has been detected in several countries in Europe, Asia and Africa over the past 2 years. Its spread aided by wild bird migrations. Diabo Seton, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Cape Town firefighters have had to abandon efforts to fight a blaze which razed a community clinic in the Joe Slovo settlement at Milnerton after they were pelted with stones. The clinic was set ablaze during a service delivery protest late yesterday. The MACO member for Safety and Security, JP Smith, says the city's budget is overstretched and they will not be able to replace the clinic soon. The community hall was also torched and several vehicles stoned as authorities moved to rein in the protest. It was not immediately clear whether the protest was linked to the removal of shacks in the area. Meanwhile, train services in Mansfield, Soweto remain suspended until further notice. This follows the deaths of a 17-year-old boy and a security guard during a service delivery protest in the area yesterday morning. Metro Rail security guards allegedly killed the boy, and angry community members then turned on the three guards, beating one of them to death. Metro Rail has disputed claims that their security officers were carrying guns. Twarangano Hospital at Kuruman in the Northern Cape has been operating without running water since December. Families bring their sick relatives drinking and bathing water from home. Those lying in hospital are worried about the unhygienic situation.
Run dry, toilets cannot flush. Masego Newo says she was forced to purchase water for her sister who was admitted to hospital last Friday.
She was here on Friday. She didn't have any water. So I decided to take money from my pocket to rush to the tuck shop and buy some because she needs to drink water because she's sick.
Patients say the situation is disheartening.
They talk about hygiene, but there is none of that.
The problem is we cannot do without water. Water is healthy, should be healthy at all times.
In the interim, the health department has provided a 1,000-litre JoJo tank.
The plan is to take out the old borehole. If you have been to Tshwaragano, you would have seen that there's an old borehole that is no more functional. So we've got to take that out and put in new underwater borehole system.
There is still no deadline on when the water situation will be resolved. Meanwhile, the department says 25 clinics in the district also need boreholes. Nerea Hlakutsa, SABC News, Kuruman in the Northern Cape.
Botswana President Ian Khama has paid his final respects to the former president, Sir Ketumile Masire. Masire's body is lying in state at the country's parliament, and Botswana are paying their final respects. Botswana Vice President Mokgweetsi Masisi says Masire's contribution to the struggle for stability of the region cannot go unnoticed. Masire offered refuge to many freedom fighters in the SADC region during his tenure as president, and his country was sometimes attacked by apartheid South Africa in 1985, where scores of people were killed, including Botswana. Scores of people in Botswana are queuing up at the parliamentary building to view the body of the former president, Sir Ketumile Masire. The body of the statesman is lying in state and people will view it for the entire day. Masire passed away last Thursday at the age of 91. On Thursday, Masire will be laid to rest at his home village, Kanye, next to his late wife. Dignitaries and heads of state are expected to attend both the memorial and funeral services, while thousands of Botswana are expected to also pay their final respects to the late former president.
He did a lot for the people. He did a lot in trying to make us self-reliant. So for that, I saw it fitting for me to come and pay my last respects for the late president.
He was a man who built our nation. Some of us were not even born during those times. From a very poor background as a country, from a man who instilled in us a sense of self-reliance, independence and unity, driving a value of a collective effort for the nation.
I have come to pay my respect to a hero, one of the heroes who have built the nation of Botswana to be what it is today.
I am here to honor him because he deserves this as a
our founder of the Republic of Botswana.
Of course, today we're talking about high data costs and investigations into this. But the Internet Corporation of Assigned Names and Numbers, ICANN, is currently hosting its 59th public meeting at the Johannesburg Sandton Convention Centre. The meeting is hosted by the ZA, the Name Main Authority, and will bring together global and regional internet stakeholders for the next 4 days to develop policy related to the internet's domain name system. Now, to talk to us about the conference, we are joined in studio by Pierre Danginu, ICANN Africa's Vice President. Very good morning to you, sir. Thank you for being with us.
Good morning.
Please give us a quick overview about the conference. What will be happening?
Thank you very much. ICANN is actually in town to, as you said, discuss policy as concerned the internet. Basically, what ICANN does, is to work on those unique identifiers that makes the internet work actually, and those identifiers are about the domain names, the protocol that we use. So we do coordinate those things, but it comes with policies that we need to develop so that this promote development and respect the uniqueness of the internet. So that's what we are here to do in our second what we call a policy forum. I mean, this is also our kind of 10 times now to come into Africa, and which is quite a good record for that matter.
In South Africa, we have a specific problem. We're battling the second highest data costs in the world. If you could give us advice and tell us, how do we overcome this, and what do you think are how is this a hindrance to small business and economic development?
That's a good question, actually. Not just South Africa. Actually, whole of Africa is facing that issue, of high costs. And the average, Africans is paying something like 15%, of its outcome, to connectivity, as opposed to 1%, for instance, in Europe, which is quite high. Some of the way you kind of reduce costs could be coming with the policies that you put to place. Yeah. And those policies also are about, the decisive, effort you make to boost your infrastructure, accessibility, infrastructure that you need to put to place, but also the whole issue of data, producing our own data, for instance, in Africa, hosting those data in Africa can also help. And also what we call the ISP exchange points that you need to put together that really keep your data, local, and then that ultimately reduce, your accessibility cost, for you. These are some of the solutions that you may have, of course, and also boils down to, when I say data, I say also what we call the local content. In African languages, for instance, this is something we can do. ICANN, can help on that because we do have programs on the ground, technique on the ground to have, African script, on the internet. Also. All of those, are strategies to kind of reduce, the cost.
Talk to us a little bit about evolution and the importance of the internet's evolution on the continent.
I would say Africa is on the move. Right now, yes, by way of statistic, for instance, we are talking about 28% of Africans, connected, out of 1.2 billion. But also, we are going there because the infrastructure, the cables, that are already in place, 14 to 15 of them are surrounding, Africa. We need that accessibility is getting there. We are getting there, but there are still more to do, actually. And also, we are seeing applications, Africa, that are being developed, to actually make sure that Africa, use the internet for its development. And plenty of things are happening today in Africa in terms of the iHub that we have. We have developers that are trying to kind of develop specific solutions, to African problems. So it is happening. I would say Africa is on the move, but of course we still have more to do in terms of policies that we need to put to place, but also in terms of the way we beef up, the e-commerce, for instance, around all of those things, and also our enterprise, small, enterprises because that's where they think is exactly the business of the internet, actually.
At this week's conference, you'll be launching the final report of the African domain name. Just tell us a little bit about the initiative.
Well, this is an initiative that came up 2 years ago, as we noticed, as I come, that something needs to be done in Africa in terms of the domain name business.
Yeah.
As we stand today, Africa is not really faring well, in terms of domain name business. When we mean domain name business, we are talking about what we call your CCTLD, which is your country code domain name, your .za, for instance, here. But also you are talking about the generic one, which is .com, .org, whatever.
Yeah.
In total, Africa something like 4.5 millions of those names. So we set out to kind of clarify the issues, make some sort of a few research to know exactly what does the domain names market in Africa look like. So basically what the findings of that report that we are going to disclose here actually today are saying that, well, Africa is a diverse continent.
Yeah.
Meaning you can't just compare South Africa to, say, Burkina Faso, for instance. There are so much diversity in terms of income, but also in terms of the way they are consuming those domain names. The other thing also that we notice that the business surrounding it, meaning you have to put to place, appropriate, what I would say, models,
Yeah.
So what we are saying here is that certainly we need a new sort of business model for the domain name in Africa. And that business model should seek to be as comprehensive as it is, with registrar, what we call registrar, registries, and then registrant. So the 3 R's, as we said. Also about costing. We need to think about costing, and also we need to automate, the processes, so that the registrant, can easily, get on that using, the domain name. So yeah, these are some of the findings, and then we are going to set up an observatory for African domain names. It has never been done, and ICANN is here to support this sort of thing for Africa.
I wish you all the best with the conference here in Sandton this week, and let's hope that these outcomes will be implemented. I thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
Mr. Pierre Danjinu, he is the Vice President of ICANN Africa, and of course the conference is taking place here in Johannesburg this week for the next 4 days. Thank you once again for joining us. Of course, we've been asking you, why do you think the social media blackout? Yes, this activist campaign that was launched on the 21st of June. Why do you think it failed? Well, you guys are tweeting us plenty on this now. This one from Tlaiseka says to us, it is failed, or you wanted to see data fall overnight. The fact that it made an impact, you're still talking about it even now. Thank you. Like that. Muli Malong says, social media blackout failed because social media gurus are just way too smart to be sabotaged by social media amateurs. Well, we're still talking about it, and the pressure's on, isn't it? Zandila says it ain't a failure since it got the likes of Vodacom tripping with their Make Your Day promotion, and y'all talking about it. That is winning. Yes, feels like it's a war, isn't it? Mojabeng says to us, Newsroom, we wouldn't be talking about it if it failed. Indeed, you are right. Jamila van der Scape says, as a student, I need to always make sure that I have enough data for my school projects and assignments. The same goes for all students. Yes, it's not a failure. It's not a failure. Still talking about it. And that was the point of the campaign, is to bring some consciousness to the high cost of data and to force these big conglomerates to play ball. Anyhow, time for us to go to Parliament. The Home Affairs Portfolio Committee is now sitting on the first day of its investigation into the Gupta family's citizenship controversy. Let's cross live there.
Agreement. But you see, you cannot say that, why are they not here while they told you that someone is overseas? What are you saying? And what do you want to say to us? Because they told you that this person is not around, is overseas, and if the DG now is here, he must account, but we know that they accounted. The only thing is that he will just give clarity. And if we are not satisfied, there should be another meeting that will clarify the issues. And it's where we will be able to summon the minister and the former minister. There's no dispute here. Unless if people, they just want to blow this out of nothing. So, and the last point is that I appeal to all members of the Portfolio Committee. As last week we agreed that let us listen to DG and then we will take it from there. I think the inquiry is needed. If DG doesn't clarify us to the last point. So, but now, please, my colleagues, honorable members, let us take DG and we will take it from there. If we are not satisfied, then we will take a decision. And I think the only decision that we can take is inquiry. That's all. Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes. If you are not, if you don't really watch out, you may talk in circles for the next 2 hours, and then I'm referring to those that are maybe repeating to speak. We may talk in circles because any time when you say a thing, you must expect that somebody will respond to you. Honorable Kenya.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think, Chairperson, I'm also covered.
Okay.
But just to make a point that, yes, of course, we say that we agree, all of us. And we ourselves, we always have, we have an obligation. We know that, and we know that this is in public domain, and it is critical. But I think also we must respect, that's what Honorable Commander was saying, because the apologies are written here. We ourselves always have apologies, which we take as they are. Especially that we are saying now that the DG is here. And we know that the DG and the staff of Home Affairs are those who really print these documents which are in front of us, which we can need also to zoom in and get clarity on the issues. Especially DG, because DG also signs in these same documents. Now, why don't just I also appeal to the honorable members that let us really take it that let us accept these apologies as they are written, so they are not even verbal, so that we move forward. Thank you, Chairperson.
Should I repeat, Honorable Steenhuisen? Yeah, and then the Gumede speak. Speak, Gumede.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Chairperson, let me once again stress this. It is very important for Parliament to respect Cabinet, the executive. It is very important for Parliament to respect the judiciary. That is why we have a separation of powers. I think the issue we are about here is that given that the DG could not come last week, we needed much more information. That is why we received this very thick document after the meeting. It did not come before the meeting because of what arose last week. And this document we have read. And then after reading it, we need clarification. We need facts. We need then to ask the DG to clarify further. After that, the ANC is prepared to look at all the facts respectfully. It is prepared to look at all the proposals, so far it's invitations, summons, and this and the other, inquiries and so forth. We are saying we are prepared to factor in those proposals in our response going forward. But we do not want to make decisions prematurely. We value also our relationship with the executive. We value our relationship with the judiciary. We value our relationship with all other parties, because if they were not there, the credibility of our democracy would have been in tatters. So we definitely respect them. So we want clarity, and then after that, we can respond after factoring in everything that was said in this meeting. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Thank you.
Chair, I think let us have a way forward now. The way forward is that the committee, which is under your wing as the chairperson of this committee, you must plan this thing very, 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 very good. Because it seems as if your planning is also questionable, Chair. The reason why I'm saying so, the agenda that is in front of us, it stipulates very clear that we are going to have 2 ministers. And I must also repeat myself to say, even that what happened last week, your communication from your office says that the DG is coming, but only to find out during the morning when we are here. So please plan this thing accordingly, and then tell us that the minister, 2 ministers, when they are coming. We don't want to find ourselves to come in the committee and only to be told in the morning that those 2 people are not coming. So plan this thing accordingly, Chair, and then just call the committee to say, definitely sure, these 2 ministers will be available. Because I just want to dispute this thing that we must accept that these 2 ministers have went overseas. You just don't wake up today and go to overseas. Definitely you don't. You plan your trip to overseas. You prioritize your things to overseas. So meaning that, Chair, if those people were not going to be available today, I mean, your office should know that don't put on the agenda because they are not going to come before the committee. But only to be told on the last minute, I think as the committee we are being undermined.
Thank you. Honorable Steenhuisen, and then Melder will be the last. Oh, there is Mamkom, you'll be the last. And then I'm going to close this discussion.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, I just want to place on the record that, I didn't come here with some fantasy that the ministers were going to be here today. It wasn't something I made up when I got up this morning and thought, well, it would be nice if I can dream that the ministers are going to be here. This was published on the Z list of Parliament on Monday, that it would be a briefing by the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Home Affairs on the naturalisation subject. I didn't make it up. It's not something I made up. It was on your agenda as well. So I do take issue with the fact that when I've come here with an expectation based on a Z list and agenda that the ministers are going to be here, that I'm somehow disrespectful for the fact that they're not here. I would venture to say, sir, that the disrespect is on the behalf of the executive, who are accountable to us, not the other way around. And I have a great deal of respect for the right honourable gentleman from KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Gumede, and I have a great deal of respect for him. But with respect, the Constitution in Chapter 4 and 5 doesn't mention the word respect once. It says accountability. It says oversight. And that's our role. And so if we are going to operate in a mutually respectful way, it means that ministers have to be here. But Chairperson, I want to say to you that I'm happy for us to proceed as a way forward. I'm not trying to disrupt your program. But I can tell you at the end of the day, you're going to be very happy with the input from Mr. Apleni and his department, because my reading of the papers is that the systems worked. And they did what they should have done. And that's not where the problem lies. The problem lies with the exercise of ministerial discretion. And these gentlemen and ladies here today are not responsible for the exercise of ministerial discretion. And so that is the problem. So we can proceed today, but at the end of it, we're going to end up with that situation. And I would suggest to you, sir, that what we're seeing here is a diffusion of this very important issue. So the ministers are not going to come on the same day as the department, and when we try and question them around issues and try and see where the anomalies lie, it's going to be very, very difficult. And that's why, with respect to, I argued for the creation of a single ad hoc, and why these committee-type probes I don't think are going to be as successful. But nonetheless, as a way forward, I'm happy to listen to Mr. Apleni and his department, and I've got some questions for them, but I would venture to say that we're going to end up at the end point this afternoon that the problem does not lie with the department. The problem lies with the exercise of executive oversight, and that's what this committee should be applying its mind to.
Honourable Mulder.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I agree with my colleague. I've listened to what the colleagues have said, especially Mr. Gumede, he was doing very well. He said how we should respect the judiciary and how we should respect the executive. And then I expected him to say the next sentence should be, and how they should respect the legislature. But he didn't get to that point.
Speaking as a legislature.
The point is, Chairperson, political parties who do not respect the electorate gets into trouble. And that is our job. We should respect the electorate out there, and we should respect the Constitution. We are supposed to do oversight. I also listened to what Mr. Gumede said very clearly. And my concern is not what he said, but what he did not say. I don't want us to get into a position that we listen to the officials today and that the officials give us all the details, and then we say, because the information we've now received, it's no longer necessary to call the executive. That's my concern. It's not for the officials to do the bidding on behalf of the executive. We must once and for all get that settled, that the executive should come to account to the committees of Parliament. So we can proceed, Chairperson, but I maintain the agreement that we reached last week was that those ministers should come and account. And the sooner we do that, if we're going to invite, we may invite. It's a question of priorities. And it's not all the ministers that are abroad. One is abroad. And even in the reply we received, in the apology, it says she's standing in for another minister. Fine. It's a question of priorities. Do I stand in for that minister, or do I come and account to the committee? But all I'm saying, Chairperson, is let's proceed, that's fine. But it should not end where we come to a conclusion, or the majority party comes to a conclusion, it's no longer necessary for the executive to come and account.
Mango.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I think this matter, following last week's meeting, and noting that the DG could not make it last week, is something which we do take note of, because he had to be at the NCOP. We're grateful that the DG is here today, and we're hoping that he will give us the input. But I must agree with my colleagues when it comes to the final people, or the main people that need to give us an input, and that is the ministers. We need those ministers here. They need to be summoned. I think, Chairperson, I'm not sure whether the letter which was written last week by your office was an invitation or a summon. Because if it was a summon, I think it would have been treated differently. So, Chairperson, let's move towards a summon, and let's put a date and a time, because members are here and members will still be here. The investigation has got to take place, and we need to ensure that everything is done properly. So, Chairperson, through you, let your office also play the role it should be doing to actually summon the ministers. If it comes to a push, go through the office of Mr. Frolik and all our senior politicians here, if they are not willing to come, so that at least they are actually expected to make an appearance. And it would be surprising if they don't make an appearance, because it's there in the Constitution, it's there everywhere else. So one is actually shocked at how things are going. Thanks, Chairperson.
I'm closing there. I'm closing there. I'm closing now, honorable members. I think, honorable members, last week, we made an arrangement that the DG should come. We never invited any minister to come last week. You see. And this is the first time that we have actually asked for the ministers to come. But then we are talking to this matter as if we invited them last week, they did not come. That means they are refusing. Even today they are refusing. I don't think it is correct. We've made it very clear that last week we invited the DG. And yourselves, honorable members, you said you want documentation, to an extent that one of you ended up saying that needs even the emails. And I had to intervene and say, you can't talk about the emails from the department. The emails are with those that have it. And they are the only people that can assist us with the emails. Because we want the department even to verify that, to say to us that those things are correct documents, they relate to what the department has. Up to now, we don't have points of dispute. We don't. Even last week, I think I said so. We don't have points of dispute. But we must understand that from the DA is that, like as I said last week, honorable members, that the DA has asked a question on this specific matter, and they've received answers on this specific matter. They've received answers exactly on the same matter. Hence, that's why the DA may be having another intention to complete which they are far ahead of the rest of us. We want information, want the department to tell us the process, and then what they've done, anything that's wrong or anything that's not wrong. We are still at that stage to be on par with what the DA knows. Probably Melder knows as well, because it looks like they are in agreement with Honorable Steenhuisen on their intent on this particular meeting. But they must understand that we are not all at that stage. We wanted to get to that stage. The department must clarify us, might give information. I think that was the intention last week, which was not done, and honorable members wanted and even listed the information that is wanted. And the DG then has even gone to give us a report, instead of just giving us the documents and whatever that have gone through the department. And now, we talk about the agenda. The agenda is the one that makes us to say to you, this particular minister has apologized, this one has apologized. If we have just simply written on the agenda item that is briefing by the Director General, then there will be no need to tell you of any apology of anybody, because in any way you don't expect them. The agenda has been written in terms of the way we have agreed last week, because this is what is going to happen. But then now there are documents that explains the absence of those that are supposed to be here. On the side of this planning that Honorable Mkhalipi is talking about, it is not confusion. It's not confusion. It was an intent of this particular meeting, but then we have got these specific incidences that the members that we invited then are not here. But this meeting, honorable members, as you know, we have communicated from Honorable Frolic, it cannot be the first and the last meeting. It can't be. Then we should not take the posture as if today is a do or die meeting. We should not take that posture. Hence, then, honorable members, as you all agree, I'm not forcing you, you all agree, let's have the DG do the work that it's supposed to do, make all of us to be on the same par in terms of knowledge of this matter. Let's get clarities wherever you think that you are not understanding properly, because even the people out there at home, they are not having the same information that we have, because, like as I'm saying, is that the DA has got answers for this question, but it was written answer to them. Now, all of us and the rest of the public are not having the same knowledge as we're speaking. For them to be able to know that we are doing the right thing or we are not doing the right thing. Let us allow the department to take us to the same level, together with anybody that is actually asking us left and right on the street. Let the DG take us to that level. And then we will then deal with all these other political issues that are not administrative and not whatever. We must have points that are of dispute, that need somebody to come and clarify. And then we'll have a meeting, then we'll call those people then to come and sort that matter up. On that score, honourable members, I would like to really welcome the DG and the delegation, and then to proceed with briefing us. And I hope that members will listen carefully so that we are able to process the issues that we have. It's just unfortunate those that are already having pre-information, then will just bear with some of us that are a little bit behind, so that then we know equally. DG, proceed. The people are waiting to listen.
Yes, Honourable Chair and the honourable members. Chair, I think let me put it on record that I do respect authority, including the Parliament. 2, I respect the citizens of this country and anyone who is within the shores of this country. Lastly, I respect myself. That's why I will never do something which will harm my integrity. Having said that, Chair, I think the approach, as we are saying that let's make sure that people understand this whole issue. I think it would be important for us before we get into the names that let's deal with the legislation. What are the provisions of the legislation? Because if we don't understand that, we're going to be talking out of 10. But once now we say this is the legislation framework, this is what has happened, and then we can match the two. And then if there's something which has not been done according to that, then that's what we'll deal with it. So, Chair, as a request of the committee, we submitted the report on the 22nd of June, which was last week, Thursday, to make sure that the members have got the report and we attach everything on there. So I will hope, as I've been hearing, that the members have got the report. And Chair, I'm really pleased that you said let's take the report into detail, not assume that people have read, so that I can be able to explain each and every step. So, Chair, the scope of the report is really to deal with the naturalization of the members of the Gupta family following their request for exemption to the ordinary residence requirements as stipulated on Section 59A of the Citizenship Act. And who are these members? It is Mr. A.J. Gupta, Mrs. Shivan Gupta, who is the wife, and Mrs. Anguri Gupta, who is the mother, and Mr. Kamal Singhal, who is the son, and Mr. Surya Singhal, who is the son. Then in terms of the immigration, most people must understand that we don't just come into a naturalization. You first come into the country as a foreign national. So in terms of that, Immigration Act deals with the admissions, how you sojourn in the country, and the departure of the foreign nationals. So foreign nationals who wish to come to the Republic of South Africa must apply for a visa, which then was called a temporary resident permit in their countries of origin, because they're not born here. And then these may be visitors, maybe a study, a medical, a business, a work, a relative, or spousal. The visa, by its definition, is for a short-term period up to 3 months. It can be 5 days, it can be 2 days, it can be 3 months, it can be long up to 5 years. But now when we're changing the rules, we give even a 10-year multiple entry visa. But doesn't mean you stay here for 10 years. But you said 10 multiple entry visa, we've got 90 days per year, so that don't go and apply every time. Then a person requires a visa to legally sojourn in the Republic, and a visa now may be extended whilst you are here. Then now the next step, a foreign national who has been in the Republic on a visa for a period of 5 years qualifies to apply. Doesn't say we approve, but you qualify to apply for a permanent residence permit. And that second permit, again, you are applying it within the immigration services. Then a permanent resident permit holder has all the rights of a South African citizen, Chair, except one right, the right to vote. I think that is important. That if you are a PR holder, you've got all the rights of a South African citizen, except one right to vote. Okay? Then the application and adjudication of temporal visas and permits is managed within the immigration branch, as I've said. Then the granting of temporal visas permits requires foreign nationals to meet the criteria set out per visa type. However, in the event an applicant cannot meet any of the requirements, he or she can apply for a waiver. The laws which have been approved by this parliament has given that provision. It's not somebody just take it from the head or how you wish to do it. Is in terms of the law, which may be approved by minister in terms of Section 31(2)(c) of the Immigration Act. We make an example here. That the Immigration Act says if you want to open a business, you must have an investment of 5 million rand. But a person can make a presentation and says, look, that's what I have, is a 2 million rand. Based on that, the minister will look at it based on the reasons and then grant that waiver. Now, if the applicant is not happy with the outcome, within the immigration, I'm not yet with this civic issue, there is an internal remedy which is an appeal. This is a democratic state. You don't have an absolute power here. If I'm not happy with what we have done, I will appeal. I think that point is important. In addition, in our constitution, if the applicant is not satisfied with the outcome of the appeal, the applicant may resort to the judicial review. So it's not only the internal processes. You can even go for a judicial review because it's a democratic state. I am dealing with an administrative function. So in terms of PAJA, the decision which I've taken can be tested and be checked whether is it legal, is it, and all those kind of things. So that's what it is important about at this point. Then again now, once granted a permanent resident permit, an applicant is issued with a South African ID book. The only differentiation, it says non-citizen. But we've got an ID book. And once we have it, it means it follows. You can have a passport, you can everything. But as I said, the only right you then have is the right to vote. So that is immigration services. Now we come now to the civics. Now when we can naturalize, because you can only be a citizen if it is by birth, or one of your parents, whether it's a mother or a father, is a South African, will be a citizen, or by naturalization. Now, for you now you graduate actually, because it's just a number of years. Now it says now, a foreign national now who has a permanent resident permit and has completed 5 years in South Africa, now is the second point now, qualifies to apply for naturalization. And I can't deny you, whoever you are, once you finish that 5 years, you qualify to apply. I don't have a discretion at that point. And if I don't do that, you'll be taking me to court. And in terms of the act, I will be acting irrational. In terms of Citizenship Act 1995 as amended, let's go now to this section. But Chair, I said let me copy the act, so that is not what I am saying. It's Annexure A of the act. I'll go to that Annexure A. It says now, the minister may, upon application, in a prescribed manner. Once the act says prescribed manner, it means now we'll have regulations to manage that. It's not in the act everything, because it is in a prescribed manner, which those regulations themselves are presented to Parliament and they approve them. Then it says now, a citizen who satisfies the minister that he or she is not a minor. So when I'm dealing with these issues, I want you now to be able to say to me, this individual is a minor, therefore we have done something wrong. But if they don't, then there's nothing wrong we've done. He or she has been admitted to the Republic for permanent residence. So you can't apply for a naturalization if we have not yet been admitted as a permanent residence holder. You can't. But we'll come to it when now there is this discretion. He or she is ordinary resident in the Republic, and that he or she has been so resident for a continuous period of not less than 5 years, immediately preceding the date of his or her application. Let me explain this, what this thing means. You might be a permanent resident holder for 10 years or 15 years. You may be, but you didn't ever wanted to apply. But now, before you apply again for naturalization, you must be in the country for 5 years. But what the regulation looks at it anticipated that a person can't divorce completely with his or her country of origin. Then it anticipated that let's have a provision to say within that 5 years, you can be allowed to go to your country of origin at least 90 days per annum. That is very important, because if we don't pick that point, we're going to have an issue when we deal with other issues. You must be in South Africa for 5 years preceding your date of application for naturalization. However, the legislators, which is not us, Parliament, anticipated that people might not be completely divorced with their countries of origin, because in other countries they allow dual citizenship. There's nothing it says, once I take citizenship of South Africa, I'm no longer a citizen of my country, I can. So it anticipated now that people will visit their families, but in that you must have 90 days in each and every year, which you are allowed to do so. Okay, he is ordinary. Then it says now, he or she is of good character. Chair, how do you measure that? This is a democratic country with people with constitutional rights. I can't look at your face and simply says, hey, you are not a good character. What do we use? Is that we go and check whether do you have any criminal record. That's the only measure which I can use and say, I check whether I've got a criminal record, if you've got in your police, in your country of origin, if you are clean there, I am not there to judge you based on what. So that's what that point again now means. So that when we come to it, to say, did we check those things in the process for anyone? Because remember now, I'm not there dealing with the people, I'm dealing with the rules. He or he intends to reside in the Republic or to continue, that's fine. He or she is able to communicate in one of the official languages of the country. We've got 11 official languages here. So if you can pick one of those, it's fine. He or he has adequate knowledge of responsibilities and privileges of South African Citizenship Act. Chair, what we have introduced in this regard now, starting in 2016, because these things, they evolve. We have now introduced that people, when on the day that they are naturalized, a judge goes and manages that process to say, allegiance to the constitution of this country. We started it in 2016 so that we make sure that people understand what this thing means. He or she is a citizen of a country. That is important, Ghana. He or she is a citizen of a country that allows dual citizenship, provided that in the case where dual citizenship is not allowed by his or her country, such person renounces citizenship of that country and furnishes the minister with a proof of such renunciation. But I think what's going to be important here is the sequencing now of what this thing means. Because if you don't understand that, you're going to misinterpret it. Before I get to it, let me make an example so that when I explain it, you can understand. I am a teacher of Home Affairs now. Then a post is advertised for a CEO of company A. I'm still a teacher of Home Affairs. I won't even tell my principal as I'm applying because I don't know whether I will get a job or not. And then I apply. Then I go through a process there of application. Then they tell me, hey man, we have been successful on an interview. But what we do here, we test medical, we test security. Then for me, because I think I've already got the job, I go and resign in my job in Home Affairs in anticipation that I will get a job. But I don't meet the requirements on that side, whether it's medical or security clearance. What will happen to me? I've lost the job of Home Affairs. I don't have the job where I'm going. Then I will be jobless. Let me explain again now this. If now you apply, you are from a dual citizenship country, you can't go and renounce your citizenship before yours has been approved, because you'll be stateless. You go and renounce your citizenship on country A, you are in anticipation that this one is going to be approved. Then on these things, there's something you don't meet. And then you are no longer this country and all the other. And Chair, we know what happened here in South Africa of a player. A player who, because of the requirement that before he can go and play, I think it was Netherlands, he had to have certain caps on Bafana Bafana. But because he couldn't get it, then he went and take the citizenship of Netherlands. He lost ours. And then now when that player to play for Bafana Bafana, he had to come and appeal and say, I can't play Bafana because I'm no longer a South African. What did we do? We left that person and left them on the wolves? We didn't, because people don't understand these things. So you can't lose your citizenship, Chair, before the other one is confirmed. You will be stateless. So I wanted to explain again now that principle in terms of the sequencing. Because if we don't understand that, when we deal with these issues, there are questions to say, when do you re-announce or whatever. But I wanted you to understand about why you have to do in a particular sequence. Furthermore, if the applicants for naturalization have children or dependents, and they explain who those dependents are, it can be a mother or a father. They must apply as a family, but is a choice. So can I emphasize that? It's a choice that I decide that I will apply for this naturalization as a family, or I can apply as an individual. But if you apply as an individual, you'll be evaluated as an individual. If you apply as a family, we will evaluate you as a family. But you remember the criteria is the same, whether you are a family or you are an individual. Then again, the important point it says, it should be noted that if one of the family members in the group does not qualify, then the whole application is unsuccessful. I think that point is very important, so that when we deal with the individual, you understand that you can apply as a family, but if you apply as a family, all of you must meet the requirement. If you apply as an individual, you must meet the requirement. So if one of you meets the requirement, but as a family you don't, then that whole application is not. Then again, now the Act says, in the event that an applicant does not meet fully the prescribed requirements set out in what means now is that, which I will go to the Act. That person should ordinarily be resident in the Republic for a continuous period of not less than 5 years immediately preceding the date of his or her application. He or she may request the minister to consider to waive the requirement based on exceptional circumstances in terms of this Act. Let's go check to Annex B so that we read it from the law. Annex B, we wrote them B, A, B, 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 triple B. If you go to triple B 9, it says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in subsection 1C, the minister may, under exceptional circumstances, grant a certificate of naturalization as South African citizen to a applicant who does not comply with the requirements of section 1C. So, Chair, is not everything. Let's go now to 1C on that annexure, which I read it, annexure A. 1C, where the minister has got a discretion, does not have a discretion on all. It's only on the one which says that he or she is ordinarily resident in the Republic and that he or she has been so resident for a continuous period of not less than 5 years immediately preceding the date of his or her application. So that's only where the minister will have a discretion, is when that person has not met the requirements of being a resident in the country for 5 years, whether it's 90 days or whatever. That's where the discretion can be exercised. So, Chair, let's move. Then, Chair, now let's come now, how do we process the applications? And I'm not sure, I will get your guidance whether at this point, maybe you want us to get questions at the end, or maybe at this point we can ask, is there anything which is not clear in terms of the law? So that because I want us that by the time we get into the names, we're able now to say, okay, I understand the law, or there was a clarity. But under your guidance, if you believe that, let's proceed, I'm fine.
Honorable members, there is a plea. Do we take the plea or do we ask him to continue? Because Honorable Gumede.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairperson. Whilst perhaps I understand that perhaps we want to continue, I think it would be important to clearly understand the law before we have names, because names are going to bring bias into this matter. It's better to discuss it before we are exposed to bias. Thank you.
Can I just be corrected? Do I hear you saying that we must open the law to be for points of clarity, or we proceed with the processing?
I request that we have all clarity we need, so that when we come to names, and then there comes a name I do not like, Gumede, then we have clarified ourselves about the law. Thank you.
Okay. I have seen Honorable Steenhuisen was saying, let's proceed, let's run. But let's allow those honorable members that would like any clarity in relation to the law that has been spelled out to us now. And then when that is done, and then say we'll now go to the processing from point 13. Mekenye, then Medambuza, then Meraputi, then Honorable Steenhuisen then will come in that order.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, DG, for the explanation, but I think just clarity on the issue. You said that you can't divorce a person from this country of origin. And you further said that some have got some don't want some countries that doesn't recognize dual citizenship. Now, in the case of a person now who supposed to, I can understand that in some countries there is this that says that you can't get. There's no objections of the person coming to this country, provided they have surrendered the citizenship of that country. In that case, what does the law says? Thank you, Chairperson.
I hope that the DG and the big delegation are taking notes. And,
sorry to add, just to expand.
Add.
Because that person is supposed to sign the Declaration of Citizenship Allegiance so that the application is finalized. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes, and then Honorable Dambuza.
Chairperson, I just wanted to...
Can I ask Honorable Kenya just to switch off the mic? Thank you very much.
I wanted to say, Chair, to comment on the interpretation
of the law
by the DG. I might differ from his interpretation on this clause, which is clause H, because he makes an example of a person who applies and so on in the case of a job. But here it's clear that you need to provide a proof before. This, according to me, OH is saying if he or she is a citizen of a country that allows dual citizenship, provided that in the case where dual citizenship is not allowed by his or her country, such person renounces citizenship of that country and furnishes the minister with proof of such renunciation. I wanted to point out I differ with his interpretation on this matter. Thank you, Chair.
Meraput.
Yeah, thank you very much, DG. When you were explaining, you said that the person after being approved, or the person on the day of naturalization, the judge must be the one who endorsed, and it was introduced in 2016. So I just really wanted to check how it should be done. That how should the judge endorse this naturalization, and where? How and where? I thank you.
Honorable Kakana.
Thank you, Chair. My point exactly was what Honorable Dambuza raised, is where I differed with the DG. But also, before we get clarity from the DG, I think the legal department is here. So they must also assist us in defining or interpreting all these things before we will go to the next chapter of the Guptas. Thank you.
All right. Honorable Steenhuisen had a hand up. Yes, it's your chance.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Mr. Plenny, for taking us through those regulations so succinctly and clearly. I just would like to deal with the Chapter 5, or Section 5(9), which you read from, if I may, 9A and B. May I ask you, sir, what discretion you have granted in terms of that legislation to make a determination there, whether that the Act passes on any discretion to you in terms of Section 5, 9A and B? And who is responsible for then in terms of 9B? Is it you, sir, or the Minister is responsible for ensuring that it's tabled in the National Assembly in terms of meeting that requirement. Then in terms of your explanation around dual citizenship, thank you very much for that. I would just like to understand, what would you regard as proof of renunciation? And is there any mechanism that the department has to ensure that such renunciation has in fact been effected and that the person is not illegally a dual citizen of a country, having just supplied a single letter from a consulate to you? So I think what we're looking for is, what checks does the department have in place to ensure that that section has been complied with? And then in terms of, again, 9A, it refers to exceptional circumstances, sir. Now, we already know that in determining or exercising executive action, those exceptional circumstances would be required to be rational and reasonable. Do you have a benchmark of what you would regard, as the department would regard, or the minister would regard, as what is exceptional circumstances? And is there a set of qualifications against which the department, or the minister in this case, would exercise a determination of what qualifies as an exceptional circumstance? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other one? Thank you very much, Honourable Melder.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you to Mr. Penny for the answers and the elucidation so far. If I understand correctly, when you start with the process, you have a choice, either as an individual or as a group or a family. And then everybody has to comply in terms of that group, as was the case in this instance. Is that the case throughout the process until the end? What I mean is, can it change in between, in the middle of the process? Can it suddenly then be changed that now we no longer deal with a group, we now deal with individual cases? Or does this have to be right through to the end? Thank you.
Okay. No, thank you very much. I need to applaud you, honourable members, that now you have got into a gear that you are empowering the citizens of this country. The questions that have been raised for clarity, I think, will empower everybody. The DG.
Thanks, honourable members, for the questions. Now let me start with this that says we cannot divorce you from your country. I was explaining it on the basis that if your country allows for dual citizenship, I cannot divorce you. But where it is not, you are divorced because you make a choice that I'm no longer want to be a citizen of that particular country. I want to be a citizen of this country. So it is in that respect. Two, surrender this, which now when I come to this issue now for dual. That's why, which is come to your question as well. You remember what I was talking about here is the sequencing. At the point that we must issue you with a naturalization certificate, you must have renounced. But not in the beginning of the process. Can I repeat what I'm saying? You remember, you start apply to us, you submit a form to us to apply. I am not expecting you that at that point you come to me and say, one of my attachments in the application is a renouncement certificate of your country. You can't. Because at that point is what I'm saying now, you'll be stateless. But I can't issue now finally with a naturalized certificate before you give me a proof of renunciation. So I was explaining, so it's the sequence. It's not that I'm saying we can finalize your naturalization, give you a certificate, and thereafter you come back. No, it is but I will show you when we deal with the actual case, but I wanted to explain it. It's a process. At the time that I apply, I make sure that I've got a permanent residence, I've got whatever, and all that and all I submit. Then you consider. But on the day now, before I issue you with the certificate, that now you've got a certificate, you've got a new ID number and all that, you must have given me that proof that you have renounced. So that's what I'm explaining. Then the allegiance and all that, though, are in the steps. Makhanya, that now you issue now the allegiance certificate and all, you do that in the steps. So this thing has got steps. You apply, you do this, you do this, you do that. Then now, I've already explained now that at what point do you, Honorable Tam. Then, Honorable Raput, no, as I was saying to you, we started this thing in 2016. We had 2 of those naturalization ceremony, and we're honored that they were carried by the Judge President of Gauteng, Judge Mlambo. Yes. So what we do, after we've done all those things again, as I'm saying, is a step. On the day now that they must be given those certificates, the judge reads them, a point to say, I understand this and this and this, and then I allege to this, and then we sign the certificate, and then they agree. So it's the oath of allegiance. So we do it like, but we started it in the 2016. Those who were naturalized before did not get that. Then the Honorable Kegana did respond to this and say, but the legal people can still tell us that what I'm saying, is it correct or not? I don't have a problem with that. Then now coming to Honorable Oosthuizen. You are right. When you ask the question, who has got a discretion for that? It's the minister. Who has got a discretion for that? But I will explain. We're in a bureaucracy here. No minister who sits in a corner there and just do this. Officials prepare documents to a minister, and we recommend. A minister can either approve or disapprove based on what we have done. But I will explain when we deal with it, but the discretion lies with the minister, and then even if it lies to the minister, a minister can decide. There is this thing called delegation of powers. There are powers which are with the accounting officer in terms of the Public Finance Management Act, but I've got only 2 hands. I can't be everywhere in the department. But when I've done that, we have delegated in writing. So get these powers, these ones, were not delegated, they're still with the minister. Okay? And then proof of, what is the rationale? Well, this can be a subjective matter because to you, this thing might sit as if it is not a matter, but to me it can be a matter, but is what can be tested in terms of rationality. That's why when, and again, are you applying this thing consistently? It's another test that if I've done this to you, I will do to this and I will do to that one. Then if I'm not doing it like that, then it will fail the test of rationality and consistency. So, but when we deal with the reason, we will be able, that's why even in our file, for another reason, we've put names there. When we deal with that, to say who else in South Africa has been naturalized. We'll read them the names, some you know them. And then now to say, this was the reason, this one was that. That's why that section 59B says, give the reasons. Why did you do this? But yeah, we'll deal with it when we get there. And then what are the checks and balances? Well, you know, as a department, in everything, it's like now said, yes, we will check, but what you submit to us, we have submitted to it. If we have done something wrong, we must deal with you in that scope. But as what I checked is that, is this thing authentic? Has this thing been issued by the country which it comes from? If I've proven that, what else must I do beyond that? And then if you have lied to us, then we will deal with that issue as people are lying on all these things. So there is a process which we follow, and then we will look at it. Chair, let me proceed. This was the last question. No, sorry. Honorable Mund says now, can you change? Yes, that is a very important question. You see, is that I'm saying that if I've applied as a family, I will be that family. If I don't qualify as a family. But the point which is going to come here is to say, but if for me we have approved now, because that's how I was saying now, that thing is a condition. We have approved everything. And then you come to me and say, denounce your citizenship, and then I say no. I can't say now because me, I don't want to denounce my citizenship. Other people, when I cannot take the citizenship. But we'll come to that. You'll see when we deal with it. Okay. Let's go now to...
Let me just check DG. Honorable Kekana, do you still want the legal people to vent on this particular matter you raised?
Please.
Okay.
Let them do that.
Okay. Honorable Steenhuisen?
Sorry, just the one question that, forgive me if I missed the answer. It was in terms of the responsibility in terms of 9AB.
Yes, the tabling.
Who is responsible in terms of the legislation for tabling the list in Parliament? Who does the legislation hold accountable if that process is not completed or done or complied with?
Yeah, okay. Just respond.
Yes, no, I said the person, in terms of the Act, it says minister. We can go and read both. Go and read 5.9 on that BBB. It says, notwithstanding anything to the contrary contained in subsection 1C, the minister may. I said that has not been delegated. Then 5.9b, it says, the minister shall, within 14 days after the commencement of the sitting of Parliament in each year, table in Parliament the names. That's what it says. Yes. Come again. No, it's not delegated.
Sorry, Chair, through you. I just wanted to confirm that that power had not been delegated.
It has not been delegated.
Thank you.
Yes, I think that's what has happened, and I just remember one point that you have said, DG. I think it needs to be clarified because you talked about some bureaucracy. Yes, Honorable Nisi, I thought I heard you properly.
Yes, I did.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I just need clarity from the DG on the question of applying as a group and applying as an individual. I just want to check, Chairperson, can family members come for the second time? If they fail as a group, are they allowed to come back as individuals, no longer as a group? If their applications was not successful as a group, then they come back as individual.
Exactly. Okay. Exactly. Because I come as a group, I decide now I want to come alone. And you remember, these people are talking about here are adults. In South Africa, once now you are an adult, then you can contract and you can do whatever we wanted to do, as long as I've explained that that A said you must be 18 years and above. Okay? But we'll explain when we deal now with that. But it's a good question. So when we get into the names, then these issues now going to be coming up.
Okay. Let me just check with the lawyers there, as one member still wants to be this matter to be clarified. Is there anything to be said in terms of the sequence? I think it was on the sequence. The renunciation and the issue of the certificate of naturalization, and then the sequence. I think that's where you wanted legal input. Yes.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to the members of the committee. I'm Advocate Gordon from Parliament's Legal Services. Chairperson, my colleague and I have looked at this provision of the Citizens Act, Section 5.1, and the subsections that relate to naturalisation. And we are in agreement with the interpretation given this morning by the Director General of Home Affairs. We particularly draw on the fact that the application is subject to the prescribed manner set, and also that the H part, which relates to the sequence of application, provided that in the case where dual citizenship is not allowed, that an applicant renounces citizenship of the country where it's not allowed. We are also aware that the manner in which this is applied is consistent with the interpretation given by the Director General that it is a suspensive condition, meaning that South Africa would offer an applicant a successful answer to an application for naturalization subject to renouncing citizenship with another country. So it doesn't happen before, it does happen after. So we are in agreement with the interpretation by the Director General. Thank you.
Okay, it looks like Honorable Kekana is happy about that explanation. Honorable Sope.
Yes, Chair, just the clarity on the explanation on the renunciation of citizenship. So when exactly? Before you apply, you must announce, as the DG was making an example of applying from other departments as the DG, or after we've been granted. So can we just get a clarity when this issue comes in?
It's just a little bit difficult. It is now the DG that must answer that one. It's the DG.
Yes,
the DG
it's
proceed.
simple. That's why I was saying this thing. As long as you understand the process, that's why I was making an example like a job. When you apply for a job, that thing has got a process. You apply, submit a form today, you get a short list, you go to an interview, you go to all those steps, and then lastly, when now we are giving you a letter of appointment, is because you have satisfied all the conditions. Let me come to this one. You apply to say, I've finished my 5 years. Your first requirement, I must have my 5 years permanent residence. And whatever you submit, then that thing is looked at it. After he has looked at it, I'm going to explain now when I come to the processing of civics. There is a panel which looks at that. Then after that thing of yours has been approved, then now if you are from a country which needs a dual citizenship, they write a letter to you and say, now we've considered your application has been approved on condition that you submit this. Then before we go to the system now and capture you as a South African, all those conditions must be met. Then now we have submitted your renunciation, then I can issue now with the ID number of South Africa. Thanks, Chair.
Do you still need the lawyers to speak to it, or it's clear? Thank you very much. Yes. Now we are being empowered. The DG proceed.
Let's come now to what is the process now of how to deal with these things? Because there is a process which we set so that we make sure that everything goes through that. The first thing which we do is that it is important to know that the initial processing of assessment, that's why I'm saying, Chair, on that broadcast we're talking about, does not sit in a minister in a corner and just approve these things. It is important to know that the initial process of assessment involves preparation of a submission by an official. There is an official who must get this thing, which when I deal with it, I will show what this is the submission which they prepare themselves to look at what is the criteria, what is this, who goes through the file and collates all information in the submission to be presented to the Naturalization Adjudication Committee. Chair, why did we have a committee? Not a one-man or lady person sit and just make a decision. You need a panel so that you make sure that this thing is looked by a committee, not by an individual. Because granting someone a citizenship is not a child's play. Then that committee is chaired now by the chief director, who's next to me now, and then if he's not there, somebody else chairs it, and then it's got 3 members. The committee, now, what is the role of the committee, Chair? Which when we deal now with that issue, which we're going to come to it, the letter, my minister, and overruling somebody else. The committee ensures that the applicant complies with all the requirements in terms of its role. Committee either approves or rejects. So it means the approval of that is with the committee, is delegated to the committee. It's not delegated to the minister, it's with the committee. And it can reject. the same committee. So it means if your application is successful at a committee level, it gets implemented. If it is not, it gets rejected. The committee has got the power to reject. Then we're going to come to say now, what are the provision of 5B now? But I'm just bringing the explanation. An applicant will now submit, an applicant will submit an application as an individual, as what I've already explained, even what form they do. And then now the Directorate Citizenship verifies the authenticity of the issued permanent resident. Is this certificate issued by the department or not? If the naturalization and education approve the process of issuance, the applicant must then, with that process, must then sign declaration of allegiance, where the applicant's country, do you see now where it comes, does not now allow dual citizenship. The applicant must submit the renewalization certificate letter from the country of origin. Is the process, that sequencing I was talking about. Submission of above stated document will lead to the changing of identity number from permanent resident identity number, which provides for all rights, including the right to vote. Failure to submit a signed declaration of allegiance or renunciation letter will lead to the naturalization certificate not being issued. So you can comply with all this, but if you don't meet the conditions, that certificate won't be issued. Okay. Chair, I think now I've explained now the process within, what is the law, what is, let's come again now to the individuals which were listed in the letter. So,
second, honorable members, are we happy about the process? It has been claimed, it has been explained clearly, just on a theoretical basis, without attaching names, just the process as outlined. Honorable Stianese?
If I could just get clarity from Mr. Apleni, if I may. So that committee that sits would be the committee that would consistently sit on these types of matters. It's a permanent committee. And they would then be able to adjudicate their decisions based on previous decisions that they've made in similar circumstances. So it would, I would imagine, remove the arbitrariness out of the situation, because the people sitting on that committee would have had the experience of rejecting applications before and approving applications before. So that is the check and guard for consistency in your department. Is that correct?
Exactly, that's what we do. So that we make sure that that committee is appointed. We don't appoint a committee for a particular application and then appoint another committee for another application. That committee is appointed to deal with these things, and they're able now to maintain those issues of consistency and the application of the law. Okay. Then, Chair, let's go again now to the individuals now. So I give now chronological step followed by the applicants on each one. What did we do and all that? Let's start now. Mrs. Anguri Gupta. The applicant applied for and was granted a visa, then called temporal resident, dated 28 December 1995. It means this person arrived in this country just 1 year after the dawn of democracy in this country. So was here in 1995 with a temporal residence permit. So that when we deal with this fast tracking and all that, we understand it, that this person arrived in this country in 1995. And then again was issued with another one in 1997. That's why I said this means that she arrived in the country in 1995. Further, I applied for another one for reunion with the family in 2001. Then, according to our records, we have looked at it. She has been here for about 6 months' time during those periods. Then, Mrs. Gupta applied for a permanent residence permit, which was approved in 10th March 2003. Chair. permanent residence 8 years after her first TRP granted in 1995. So it means this person, as from 2003, had all the rights in South Africa except the right to vote. Is that clear, Chair? Okay. Then, thereafter, Mrs. Gupta applied for naturalization now on June 2013. I said as part of the family, which was 10 years since she was granted, we say temporal, since she was granted a permanent residence permit as against a requirement of 5 years. So when Mrs. Gupta was applying for naturalization, if you can add all these years, I mean, the other one I said what was 8, other one was 8, and then the other one was 10. So it was 18 years. This person in this country. And Chair, I said when I was opening, I respect the citizens of this country. I respect people who are in these shores of this country, because I couldn't discriminate in 1995 and says, no, you cannot come here or for whatever. I don't have reasons to do so. Not unless there was information which says you are not a good character. Okay? Then let's read again now based on what you said. This committee, her application was rejected by the adjudication committee on 23rd December 2014. Let's go there again now, Chair. And next chassis is that bureaucracy I was talking about to you. And you see now this thing is rejected by the committee. Now, here is a submission, is on C to CC. It says now, to obtain, is a committee. Now, remember, in fact, Hlatshwayo is the one who signed this document. Hlatshwayo is the one who wrote that letter, which was in circulation. So, she was a secretary, is a female, is a miss. Yeah, she is a secretariat of this committee. Now, if they give background, her permanent resident was issued word, it was verified. Number 4, Chair, 2.4, the police report shows that there is no illicit activity identified. There is no adverse information on the applicant's police clearance certificate. Chair, what is important, Gena, is this thing below. Period of residence. Chair, it means, remember I said 5 years preceding. It means now this person on year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, she did not go out of the country. You see, Chair, the zeros. But now in the year 2013 to 14, she was out of the country 3 months and 18 days. So it means she exceeded the 90 days by 18 days. What made this person not to meet the requirement is because in the last year, in the last 5 years preceding her application, has got a 1 year where she was out 3 months and 18 days. That made her not to qualify. That's why, again, if you go to the next page, the committee did not approve this application. And the reason why they did not approve this application is because this person did not comply. They put what is the regulatory policy or regulatory compliance. If you go to bullet B, It says, as a regulatory requirement, any person who lodges an application should not have been absent from the Republic for a period of more than 90 days in any year during the 5-year period of ordinary residence immediately preceding the date of application of naturalization. In view of the fact that Mrs. Gupta does not comply with the requirements, refusal is recommended. It's the committee. Let's move. What did we do? Hlatshwayo, as a secretariat, writes a letter to the family. One of the things, if you go to paragraph 2 and paragraph 3, it explains to them clearly what made her not to qualify. Is because they don't meet that requirement. Then the last paragraph, which I saw that letter which was circulating. That letter has been, what is the right word now? No, it's been tampered with. Yes, that letter said, however, you and your family will qualify to reapply on 23rd December 2017. That letter says 2015. It's wrong. It is 2017, and I will explain why it was 2017 and not 2015. So that's the first thing which is wrong in that letter, but we're not discussing it now, but I'm just highlighting it. Okay, then let's go to the next person now.
Shouldn't he just deal with the 5 names? And then because whatever you may raise, maybe it is also applicable to the other persons. Yeah. Let's just complete that bunch of the names of the 5 names, and then we will subject it for clarity.
Let's come now to the 2 applicants, again part of the family. AJ Kumta Gupta and Shivan Gupta. Shivan Gupta is the wife, and AJ is the husband, and AJ is the son. Come again? Annexure E. Annexure E. Okay, it's the same from there, but what is important is the period of residence, 2.61. If you look at 2.61, husband, Mr. AJ Gupta has been in the country, did not exceed any period. In the 2013 to 24, it was 1 month, 18 days. In another year, it was 2 months to 5 days, 1 month, 2 months, 10 days. So in terms of that, he has not been out of the country to make him not to qualify. Had he applied as an individual, he would have got that without anything because he complied with the regulation. But he applied as part of the family. That's why it made him not to qualify.
Honorable Melder, I will still request that we hold on, yes, so that this all the names, then we have them. Just try and make note, yes, that we just go through the names, then and their circumstances in relation to this application. Then, yes, we subject it, yes, to your inquiry.
Then now on number 2.6, the wife. The wife did not have the 5 years. Was short of the 2 years in this. Then that's why our application requires applicants to apply as a family. If one of family does not qualify, it affects the rest of the family. That's why they were putting that there. And then now you come to the next thing. It says now, in view of the fact that does not comply, refusal is recommended. They write whatever the committee. Then now we go to the sons. The sons, Chair, because we were worried about that, this thing of a surname might be an issue, is Kamal Kant Shingala. So we said people are going to say, hey, these are not Guptas. That's why we attached the letter where in terms of the culture in India, a child they name it as Shingala, but it's the same thing as Gupta. So these are the sons, but they are following a surname. If you look at these ones, this one, they are, firstly, what is important, they are more than 18 years at the time of application. So the youngest, who is Surya, who was born in 1995. By the time now he was applying, he was already 18 years. So he was above the years. And if you look at them in those dates, they arrived in Abapongo 1995. I think that one arrived here as a child, really. He arrived in 1995. So if you look at them, their period of absence was less than if you look at the schedule. And then, Chair, it means now they were qualifying. You will see now if you read, in view of the fact that Kingala, though it says is supposed to say does comply with the requirements of section, the approval of his application is recommended to him. But because they were a group, then now all of them, they did not qualify. It's the same with the next son. They did not qualify. Now, Chair, once that now has happened, the committee has declined these applications. Now, what is the rights of these people, not them, anyone? Then that section 59A starts now to kick in to say, we have failed the application because we do not qualify with that 51C. Now, what can we do? It's within their right. It's in the law. Then now you can approach the minister with your exceptional circumstances. Then, before I get to what the letter, let me deal, Chair, with this thing. Because when we get into it, the letter of Hlachwayo and the letter of the minister. Chair, this country, this one, has got a hierarchy of the courts. You go to a court A, which I've done in a lot of cases. I go to the Court of Appeal. You lose a case there. Then it goes to the Supreme Court of Appeal. It reverses the decision which was taken by the lower court. Because it's the hierarchy of how things happen in our country. But what you cannot do is that now I'm at a lower court, I change the decision of the higher court. That's why they will call that as a contempt of court. You can't do that. So, Hlachwayo, letter they are writing is within their own right, is what they are delegated with. They've applied the law right, and they were able to say these people as a family, they do not qualify. And whether one or one qualifies, but they dealt with that. Now, what happened now? Comes again now to this bureaucracy I was explaining. Go again now, Chair, to Annexure J. No, in fact, we can go to Annexure I. Annexure I, they exercise their right to say, in terms of that section, we believe that we are in exceptional circumstances, which can now, as we're discussing now with Honorable Oosthuizen, it will depend now whether now to you or to me or to anybody else are those reasons carry a weight. But on that thing which you were saying, I'm going to be giving you others who have dealt with it and check whether when I compare this and compare that, it means that there was something irrational here. Which can, if that is the case. But I'm not going to read the letter because it was already there. It says now they've got investment in the country and all that. They've employed 7,000 employees. They've got whatever. They've invested about 25 million. But, Chair, let me correct something here, another assumption which can be made. There is an assumption which now says we must believe that the money which is invested by the Guptas can only come from AJ. I don't know. The family, the first person who came here is the mother. And I'll be wrong if I can think that if I am rich, my richness can only come from me as the son. I can inherit something from my mother. So why now we believe that if the letter is saying this is the investment which we have, it is equal to, that is the son who's got that money? Secondly, it's a wrong assumption again. If now I believe that my wife can only be poor, it can't bring anything to me. If now I applied with my wife on this, the person who's got the money here is me. It might not. So what I'm trying to explain here, Chair, in this thing is to say that business is of that family. I don't sit and say, tell me about this one contributed 10%, this one contributed 5%, this one didn't contribute anything. That's why, Chair, in the letter we explain, where do I get that? We go to DTI, but I wasn't going to touch those things here. DTI confirms what this business is registered. We go to SARS. SARS confirms that this business is registered here, is paying tax. So what else must we do? But what I'm saying, let's correct this assumption that if now there is AJ, there is mother, there is a wife, the only person amongst the three who would have contributed here, it means it's AJ. It's an incorrect assumption. Let's continue, Chair. I'm talking about our bureaucracy now, coming to that question. Here, Annexure J, how do we do this? We said first, we start with the committee. Committee has done what they are doing. In a bureaucracy, Chair, no minister would just sit and write a letter. A minister is advised by his or her lieutenants, which in this case, the last one is the DG. If in the line we have applied the principle wrong, yes, the minister is taking the ultimate responsibility. But the steps below, they are also not clean. You can't say, no, I was passing it up. I've got a responsibility as each level that this thing is not complying, this thing is wrong, this thing is like this, and then based on that. However, the minister ultimately, he must look at it and say, I have satisfied myself, everything is okay here, then I can do it. Let's go again now to this thing. It says now the purpose to submit for ministers' consideration. Annexure J. Or maybe let me J by, I want to go to the J number, J by 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you can open that, but I want to start from the back. If you go to the J about 5, you know, the person who prepared this document is Mr. Skakana is here, is sitting here. No? Then from Mr. Skakana, it came to Mr. Ramashia, who is sitting here next to me. Then from there, it went to Mkiza, the DDG, who is not here today, but we know him. Then from there, it came to me. And then from there, it goes to the minister. So if now these people who are here on the line have not advised the minister properly as bureaucrats, they did not understand what these laws means, then is a problem. But I'm not saying the minister is the final approver. Must simply say I've been advised. But Chair, he does not sit in a corner and write a letter. What is important here, Chair? 6.2 2 on that last JJ, a draft reply to Mr. Gupta is enclosed for Minister's signature. Please, should Minister concur with the contents, therefore? So it says now that we are recommending Minister must apply his mind, and then now based on that, look whether the law is complying with everything. So that's what as bureaucrats we did. But Chair, what is important with this submission, I want us to go now on the JJ. Yeah, oh, J by 2. Yes. You see, if you go to 2.3, it says now the applications were adjudicated on 23rd December 2014 and were rejected due to the fact that Mrs. S. Gupta wife and Mrs. A. Gupta mother did not meet the residential requirements. It's not all of them. That's why we're explaining, Chair, to say the other 3 met the requirement. However, because as a family did not meet the requirement, that's why we are mentioning it to the minister, so that he mustn't sit and say, all this group did not meet the requirement, but it's only 2, but the motivation is for the whole family. That's why the Chair was coming to that issue to say, it mustn't say, no, because it's Mrs. Gupta and Mrs. A. Gupta, those letter of motivation can't fit to them because I've already judged them, and say the one who brings richness to that family is this person and that person and not the other. Then, Chair, it goes and say, which I'm saying 2.4, it raises to say Mr. Gupta and the 2 children did qualify. Their application were rejected as per regulatory requirement under Section 3.4 of the Act, which stipulates that all members of the family, it says now, including the applicant, must qualify to be issued with a naturalization certificate. According to the calculation, they will qualify for naturalization on 23rd December 2017. It's the same with the letter which is written by Hlajwayo to the family and say, you will qualify in 2017. And then it goes again now subsequently to the refusal. We received the record, they are motivated in terms of what business do they have, and we quoted. Then now number 2.7 is what is important. The document submitted from South African Revenue Services shows that Oak Bay Investment is registered with them, according to the information certificate. So, Chair, we verify those information. We don't just sit and get a letter and then thereafter we say what we have written, it means what it means. And then there's a DTI as well. I don't know where that, but I remember it's somewhere. Where did I put that one? I don't know where it is. But we also got in the documents, there's also, no, it's here. The document submitted